Chapter 66. The next day. Shuanghu Island Industrial Zone. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian stood in the sky, overlooking the Hongyin Feijian factory on the vast plain. In the eyes of the two of them at this time, the Hongyin Feijian factory was like a matchbox sitting on a plain surrounded by wilderness, very abrupt. Around Feijian factory, apart from an official road connecting Chongping County and Shuanghu Island Port, there are only a few dormitory buildings under construction. What is that? Chen Xianhe pointed to the 5-story high-rise buildings next to the Feijian factory and asked. Looking in the direction of Chen Ziyan's finger, Chen Daoxian smiled and said, "That is the workers' dormitory area that I ordered Chen Gongqiao to build." Speaking of this, Chen Daoxian sighed, "There are still too few craftsmen in the clan. Now there are too many buildings to be built in the clan, and there is a serious shortage of craftsmen." Hearing this, Chen Xianhe added, "Yes, it's not just craftsmen, our Chen family's population has been decreasing since the cultivators of the immortal generation were completely destroyed. In recent years, the number has dropped to less than 4,000. Talking about the history of family decline, Chen Xianhe couldn't help feeling sad. But soon after seeing the looming Chongping County town at the end of the line of sight, Chen Ziyan's expression recovered, and he said with relief, "But fortunately all this has passed, my Chen family is about to have its own spiritual veins, and it will never be the same as in the past. Like rootless duckweed." Chen Daoxian nodded heavily, and the two uncle and nephew smiled at each other. "Is it right here?" Arriving at the industrial zone, Chen Xianhe looked around the surrounding environment and asked. Chen Daoxian nodded. According to the ancient books, the first-order spiritual veins can cover up to 10 miles of land, and it is only a dozen miles away from the Feijian factory. Outside the coverage area of the spiritual veins, you can reach the Feijian factory, which is very convenient. In that case, let's get started. Chen Xian nodded and said. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian patted one of the many storage bags around his waist, and the next second, the materials for arranging the Yunling Great Array flew out of the storage bag. Chen Xianhe saw this, took a step back, and watched Chen Daoxian's formation. As a refiner, Chen Daoxian's formation skills are very high. Among the 100 arts of immortality, the refiner's formation skills are second only to the formation master's. Because refiner and array master are the two major professions specializing in formation. In the process of refining the magic weapon, the last step needs to be a fusion array. The so-called fusion formation is the fusion of formation and refining materials into one. It is conceivable that the refining master's formation attainments are. If the formation skills are not enough, the refiner will not even be able to outline the formation lines, not to mention the fusion formation. Not to mention the traditional array masters, they not only can arrange formations, but even create formations. The formation masters of the same rank have higher formation skills than the refiners. As for the first-order spirit formation, Chen Daoxian had already comprehended it, and as long as the spirit stones were in place, the formation could be arranged immediately. I saw that he placed the materials for the array formation one by one on the wilderness plain. 2 hours later. All the formation materials were arranged by Chen Daoxian, which outlined a mysterious formation pattern. Okay, the next step is to place the spirit stone on the array node. After arranging the Yunling Great Array, Chen Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. See this scene. Chen Xianhe stepped forward and said, "Do you want me to help?" Hearing this, Chen Daoxian glanced at Uncle 13 suspiciously. Seemed to be stimulated by Chen Daoxian's eyes, Chen Xianhe blew his beard and said, "What kind of eyes are you looking at? Your uncle and I have also learned the inheritance of family artifact refining back then. Although I didn't get started, I still have a little bit of formation skills. Otherwise, how do you think my Chen family's fire room came from?" Hearing Uncle 13 mention the family's fire room, Chen Daoxian couldn't help laughing, not to mention that he forgot about it. Since Uncle 13 can arrange the formation of the fire room, in theory, there is no big problem for him to arrange the great spiritual formation. After all, this is only a first-order array. Not to mention that he is only helping him place spirit stones at the formation nodes. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian hurriedly handed over his apology and said, "Don't blame Uncle 13, it's messed up if your nephew cares." Chen Xianhe didn't really get angry with Chen Daoxian, but seeing that his family's spiritual veins were built, he didn't help at all, and he always felt a little uncomfortable. Chen Daoxian didn't think so much, he took another storage bag. The next moment, spirit stones flew out from the storage bag. Carefully counted, more than 100,000. These spirit stones are already all the savings of the Chen family. Although theoretically, 100,000 spirit stones can cultivate spirit veins, but in order to make sure nothing goes wrong, Chen Daoxian also took out the only 2,000 spirit stones left in the clan library. In other words, the number of spiritual stones stacked in front of the two of them now exceeds 100,000. So many spiritual stones are piled up on the ground, forming a hill, which is really eye-catching. Is also an island like Shuanghu Island, which is deserted for thousands of miles. If it were placed in Guang'an Prefecture, even if there was a decree from the Zhou family, there would be jealous loose cultivators who would take risks. Chen Xianhe saw so many spiritual stones piled up in front of him for the first time, and he was a little lost for a while. Although last time he saw that the storage bag that Chen Daoxian handed him contained more than 60,000 spirit stones. But the more than 60,000 spirit stones were placed in the storage bag after all, so there was no shock to pile them up in front of him. Thinking of this, Chen Xianhe took a deep breath. True Qi wrapped a part of the spiritual stone in the storage bag, and flew towards the formation node. Chen Daoxian put away the other spirit stones and flew in the opposite direction. With the cooperation of the two, all the spiritual stones were finally placed until sunset. Return to the respective location. Chen Xianhe glanced at Chen Daoxian and said, "Have you arranged everything properly over there?" "Well, what about Uncle 13? It's all set up too." Hearing this, the two of them both breathed a sigh of relief, and then burst out laughing. The two laughed for a while. Chen Xianhe handed over the remaining spirit stones in the storage bag and said, "You can take these spirit stones back into the family vault," looked at the storage bag that Chen Xianhe handed over. Chen Daoxian shook his head and said, "Uncle 13, you have already spent all the spirit stones that sold Feijian for the purchase of Tongmai pill this time, and the remaining more than 2,000 spirit stones should be taken back to Guang'an Prefecture to purchase supplies." Bar. Chen Xianhe knew what the supplies in Chen Daoxian's mouth were referring to, so he nodded and said, "Okay. Finish the business." Chen Daoxian took out a spirit stone from his storage bag, looked at the baby's fist-sized spirit stone with a faint white mist, and murmured, "Is this the power of creation?" Chen Xianhe looked at the spirit stone in Chen Daoxian's hand, nodded and said, "Yes, it is only by virtue of the power of creation in the spirit stone that the spirit veins can be cultivated." Hearing the words, Chen Daoxian sighed, "It's amazing, worthy of the name of creation." Chen Xianhe smiled and said nothing. As a common currency for monks to trade, the value of spiritual stone itself cannot be as simple as the little spiritual energy it contains. Otherwise, since the spiritual veins can continuously generate spiritual energy, what is the use of spiritual stones? Not to mention that there is not much spiritual energy in the spiritual stone, which is not enough for cultivators to refine and cultivate. In fact, the spiritual energy contained in the spiritual stone is more like the protective layer of its core force of creation. If there is a prodigal son who absorbs and refines the spiritual energy in the spiritual stone and loses the protection of the spiritual energy, this trace of good fortune will quickly dissipate between the heavens and the earth, which is very miraculous. Chapter 67. After half a month. The 10,000 spiritual stones placed on the main node of the Yunling Great Array lost their spiritual energy, and all the power of creation in the spiritual stones penetrated into the earth veins along with the lines of the formation. The spirit stone that has completely lost its aura is like a weathered stone. When it is lightly pinched, it turns into a pile of powder and disappears with the wind. Rubbing the spirit stone powder in his hand, Qin Xianhe stood up excitedly and looked at Qin Daoxian. The power of creation penetrates the earth veins, and the spirit veins are formed. The spirit veins are complete. Ha 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 ha. At this moment, Qin Xianhe danced with excitement like a child. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian also breathed a sigh of relief. He could clearly feel that the spiritual energy emanating from this main formation node was getting stronger and stronger. According to this trend, this place would sooner or later become a rare spiritual place. The first-order Yunling array has a main array node and 127 auxiliary array nodes. These array nodes can all be turned into spiritual eyes, providing a steady stream of spiritual energy for my Qin family cultivator. Speaking of this, Chen Xian's eyes lit up. It has only been half a month, and the main node of the formation has escaped the spiritual energy, which proves that the spiritual veins have been initially formed. Until the 127 subnodes of the formation are all turned into spiritual eyes, the spiritual vein of the Qin family has been completely cultivated. Until then, the first-order spiritual meridian of the Qin family is at least enough for more than 100 qi-refining cultivators to practice at the same time without worrying about the exhaustion of spiritual qi. Compared to the passive wild spirit eye, the spirit eye on the spirit vein can continuously absorb the spirit energy from the spirit vein, and there is no need to worry about the exhaustion of spirit energy. Unless there is a high-level cultivator who violently extracts the spiritual energy from the spiritual vein in a short period of time, it is possible to cause the spiritual vein to be damaged. Of course. In general, this kind of self-defeating behavior that infuriates the public will not be done by any cultivator. Because Reiki is essential for both low-level monks and high-level monks. No one will deliberately destroy the spiritual vein. Even if the spiritual vein belongs to a hostile force, everyone will not destroy it. As for the spiritual veins themselves, after the Qianyuan sword sect captured the spiritual veins of Izumo, they would usually choose to set up a great formation to protect the mountains, or build an immortal city, and take the spiritual veins as their own. Even if there is no chance to occupy it, Qianyuan Jianzong will just scavenge for resources, then withdraw the army and leave without damaging the spiritual veins. Otherwise, if everyone doesn't follow the rules. There are constant disputes in the world of immortals, and the spiritual veins have long been destroyed, so there is no place for the prosperity of cultivation today. Looking at the surrounding environment, Qin Xianhe nodded and said, "This main formation node will be enough to turn into a spirit pool in the future." Lingtan. Qin Daoxian was a little ignorant. He had only heard of Lingyan, and this was the first time he had heard of Lingtan. Qin Xianhe explained with a smile, when the spiritual energy is concentrated to a certain level, the phenomenon of spiritual energy transforming into liquid will occur, and the accumulation of spiritual liquid can be transformed into a spiritual pool. Of course, the more spiritual fluid there is, the bigger the Lingtan will be. At that time, you can call it Linghu or Linghai, whichever you like. But the first-order spiritual meridian, the Lingyanhuatan, is basically the limit. Reiki liquid. So it was, Qin Daoxian nodded clearly. He has practiced so far, but he still doesn't know that the spiritual energy can be so strong that it can be turned into spiritual liquid, and he doesn't know what the scene will be like. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but get a little excited. After pondering for a moment, Qin Xianhe continued, "Since the main spiritual eye has been formed, the construction of your cave mansion should also be put on the agenda." "No, it should not be called cave mansion now." Qin Xianhe glanced at the endless plain and smiled. "It should be called Xiangong." Qin Daoxuan's face was quite embarrassed when he heard the slightly teasing word of Asgard, and he quickly begged for mercy. "Uncle 13, don't beat me up." Ha ha ha. Seeing Qin Daoxuan's embarrassed look, Qin Xianhe stroked his beard and laughed. Seeing the relaxed and happy appearance of Uncle 13, Qin Daoxian also felt very happy. Over the years, Uncle 13 has been too bitter and tired. One person supports a family, and outsiders simply cannot understand the hardships of Qin Xianhe. Besides, Qin Xianhe has no talent, just an ordinary monk with poor qualifications, which makes it even more tormenting. The next day, Qin Xianhe did not rush to Guang'an Prefecture to sell flying swords, but stayed on Shuanghu Island to help Qin Daoxian and many immortal seedlings build Lingfu. Qin Daoxian as the future patriarch of the Qin family. His spiritual residence must not only be built in the eyes of the main spirit, but also the specifications of the spiritual residence must be high enough. Otherwise, the spiritual residences of other Qin cultivators would not be easy to build. Can't the ordinary Chen's cultivator's spiritual residence be built more luxuriously than the patriarch's spiritual residence? This kind of transgression will inevitably damage the majesty of the patriarch, which is absolutely not desirable. Therefore, constructing the Lingfu for Qin Daoxian is not only Qin Daoxuan's personal affair, but also concerns the face of the Qin family on Shuanghu Island and the majesty of the patriarch. Is not a small thing. Qin Xianhe said that although the Asgard palace is a bit exaggerated, when the power of the Qin family continues to grow in the future, I am afraid that the Lingfu will really be built into an Asgard palace. Although the Qin family lacked craftsmen, with the addition of Qin Xianhe, a new force, the speed of building the Lingfu kept up with the accelerator, and it increased rapidly. Only less than a month, Qin Daoxuan's Lingfu was completed. Within this month, in addition to the completion of Qin Daoxuan's Lingfu, there are two happy events. The first is that the spiritual veins are completely formed. In addition to the main spiritual eye on the spiritual vein, the 127 auxiliary spiritual eyes are all emitting aura. Seeing that the spiritual energy was constantly escaping, Qin Xianhe was distressed, and quickly called for Qin Daoxian to ask him to stop the production of flying swords in his hand and arrange a spirit-gathering formation for the family's spiritual veins. In this regard, Qin Daoxian naturally has no reason not to agree. The spirit-gathering array is the most common formation in the practice world. It is easy to learn and widely used. In fact, with Qin Xian's formation skills, if he is not afraid of problems, he can try to arrange it himself. In addition to the complete formation of spiritual veins. The second happy event for the Qin family is the addition of 5 new qi refining cultivators. At this point, the number of cultivators in the Qin family finally broke the pattern of 2, reaching as many as 7. The remaining 4 immortal seedlings were too young, and due to the lack of spirit stones in Qin Xian's hand, they couldn't buy Tongmai pills for them, so they haven't been able to break through the qi refining period for the time being. These 5 new qi refining cultivators, the oldest is only 10 years old, and his name is Qin Daolin. The youngest is only 7 years old and his name is Qin Daozi. Qin Daolin, Qin Daochu, Qin Daoyan, Qin Daochuan, Qin Daozi, a total of 4 men and 1 woman, 5 qi refining monks. It was not long before the immortal seedlings broke through the qi refining period. Qin Xianhe, who was really busy, did not forget them, and directly pulled everyone to the construction site as labor. The poor people were used as child labor as soon as they broke through the qi refining period. But everyone knows that the spiritual mansion that the family is building now is for them, so not only do they not feel excluded, but they are full of motivation. Even Qin Daochu came up with all kinds of wild ideas. What is engraving the floating formation on the Lingfu, so that the Lingfu floats in the air, and what is the construction of a spiritual spring in the sky, a sky garden, etc. really made Qin Xianhe very angry. He found that Qin Daoxuan's thoughts were already very stable compared to the new generation of Chen's cultivators. Chapter 68. Shuanghu Island Port. The Canglong was moored in the middle of Chen's slave ships, which were about 150 feet long, and looked rather small. In front of the pier, Qin Xianhe waved his hand and said, "There is no need to send it, you all go back." Looking around, Qin Xianhe finally set his eyes on Qin Daoxian, and his eyes flashed away. "You stand back for now." "Yes, young patriarch." Qin Daoxian resigned from the clan and stepped forward and said, this time to Guang'an House, "It is better for Uncle 13 to maintain the original number of flying swords for sale." Hearing the words, Qin Xianhe nodded. It should be the case. Now my Qin family's spiritual veins have been established, and the foundation has already been established. As long as they grow up at the beginning of the Tao, they will be able to take on the important family responsibilities, and it will not be too late to sell a large number of flying swords. Seeing Qin Daoxian taking the initiative to mention this matter, Qin Xianhe felt more at ease with him. This proves that Qin Daoxian has not been carried away by the huge profits brought by the Feijian business. He knows that the most important thing for the Qin family at this time is not to earn a lot of spirit stones, but the lack of time to grow. Although most of the second-hand magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City in Guang'an Prefecture is occupied by scattered cultivators, it is difficult to say that there are no cultivators involved in it. Even if the cultivators don't see this petty profit, the children of the big clan who supply the second-hand flying swords to the magic weapon shops always take a share of the profits. Chen's wanton sale of brand new flying swords will not only impact the business of these second-hand magic weapon shops, but also affect the children of the big clan who supply these magic weapon shops. The Qin family at this time was really inconvenient for these enemies under the tree. Before the Qin family's spiritual veins were not established, they had to be radical. Otherwise, there is no spiritual energy to practice, and the cultivation will not be able to grow, and it will not be a problem to offend others. But now that the Qin family has spiritual veins, and if he thinks about monopolizing the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture, he will definitely be hated by the original magic weapon shopkeeper and some children of the immortal clan. In order to earn temporarily unused goods, it is unwise to be hated by some enemies early. Qin Xianhe has been in charge of the Qin family for so many years, and despite his weakness, he still stands on Shuanghu Island, relying on the word prudence. Seeing that Uncle 13 quickly understood his intentions, Qin Daoxian nodded reassuringly. In his vision, before the strength of the Qin family has grown, he is not going to wantonly occupy the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City. The magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City is mostly low-level magic weapon. Loose cultivators can only afford 100 spiritual stones of the first-order middle-grade magic weapon at most. There are very few magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City with first-order high-grade magic tools. It's not that the treasurers of the magic weapon shops can't get the first-order high-grade magic tools, but that the loose cultivators' pockets are shriveled and their purchasing power is limited. In addition to the difficulty of refining magic tools, and the low profits of low-level magic tools, the cultivators generally do not look down on the magic tool market in the Sangxiafang City. For example, the Yang family's purchase of magical instruments is directly from the Zhou's treasure pavilion to order in large quantities. The trading of magical instruments between large families like them is often on the scale of thousands or even tens of thousands of magical instruments. With the number of artifact refiners in the Zhou family, they were already exhausted trying to satisfy the gaps in their own hundreds of thousands of monks' magic tools, as well as those of other disciples of the immortal cultivators. How can you still have the energy to manage those loose practitioners in the loose shop market? According to rumors, the Zhou family faces a huge shortage of magical instruments every year. In other words, many of the instruments of Zhou's treasure pavilion were imported from other prefectures or even other states through special channels. The magic tools they made by themselves could not even satisfy the hundreds of thousands of monks at home. Actually, accompanied by more than 400 years of war between Qianyuan Jianzong and Izumo, both sides are very short on resources such as magic tools and medicinal pills. But at this point in the war, neither side dared to take a step back, because once they did, they might be doomed. Whether it is Qianyuan Jianzong or Xianqing Dao League, they are all gritted their teeth. Fortunately, Qianyuan Jianzong had the upper hand in this war, and the war was also raging in the territory of Izumo, which did not affect the Wangxinghai base camp. So far away from the Qin family in Sangzhou Guang'an Prefecture, they could hardly feel the impact of the war. But for the monks of the Izumo country, the impact of this 400-year-old war on them was too great. Farewell to Qin Xianhe. Qin Daoxian began to formally teach the 5 new cultivators of the Qin family to refine tools. Qin Daoxian wanted to come. Chen Daochu and the 5 of them have learned to refine the resources, which are hundreds of times better than what he had in the first place. Say nothing. 3 steps of refining, shaping, and fusion. First of all, the most tedious refining, because of the existence of the Rongling furnace, this step is directly omitted. To know. The step of refining materials is omitted, not only is it as simple as not learning fire control, and the huge amount of energy wasted every time in the process of refining the material. Chen Daoxian remembered that when he learned to refine tools, every time he finished refining the materials, even though the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic helped restore his consciousness, the true energy consumed was real. Needs his refining aura to recover bit by bit. It would take almost 2 or 3 days to refine the materials, and it would take at least 1 night to restore the qi. To add up, even with the help of the Hongmeng Enlightenment Classic, Chen Daoxian would only be able to try to shape and merge once in 3 days at most. This is under the premise of not considering the failure of refining materials. Not to mention that Chen Daoxian was completely self-taught at that time, and no one taught the formation and fusion knowledge at all. It can be seen that Chen Daoxuan's talent in the art of refining is really a monster. Even in the huge Guang'an mansion, I have never heard of someone with his talent for refining tools. And now, Chen Daochu, how good are their resources for learning about refining? Not only do you not need to refine materials, but you can try to shape and fuse up to 5 times a day. If the workers of the Feijian factory were made to work 3 shifts, they would even have a maximum of 12 opportunities to refine Feijian every day. Moreover, the shaping and fusion formation of the first-order low-grade flying swords does not consume much spiritual consciousness and infuriating energy. Even if you are at the first level of qi refining, you can easily do it. Not only that, everyone and Chen Daoxian, a senior first-order high-grade craftsman, were always by his side to teach him personally. Almost didn't hold a trumpet and shout in the ears of the crowd. Chen Daochu. Are you a pig? No matter how good-tempered Chen Daoxian is, Chen Daochu has been mad for so many days. How many times have I told you that the way to merge the formation lies in the foundation? Your first formation pattern is not stable, how can you inscribe the rest? Not to mention the final fusion formation in the embryo. Hearing this scolding, Chen Daochu's small shoulders shook slightly and drew a face. After more than a month of teaching, even with Chen Daoxuan's good temper, he almost gave Chen Daochu and these idiots his heart to become unstable. Chen Daoxian finally understands a little bit now. In his past life, he often saw the feelings of parents who helped their children with homework on various videos. It is true that he does not learn filial piety from his father and son, but learns how to dance. Chapter 69. Hongyin Feijian Factory. In a production workshop, Chen Daoxian sat in front of the huge silver-white melting furnace, preparing to refine the second magic weapon for himself. Generally speaking, during the qi refining period, the number of envoys of cultivators increases with the enhancement of spiritual consciousness. With the strength of the spiritual consciousness of the monks in the early stage of qi refining, they can only control 1 magic weapon at most. If there are more envoys, it will be difficult to control, and it is difficult to exert the maximum power of the magic weapon. In the middle stage of qi refining, the spiritual consciousness has skyrocketed, and the monk can use 1 more magic weapon. Of course, for the qi refining stage loose cultivator, it is good to have a magic tool to use, who has the spare money to buy more magic tools. This difficulty naturally does not exist for Chen Daoxian. As an artifact refiner, Chen Daoxian can refine as many magical tools as he wants, not to mention that his Chen family also has an artifact such as the Rongling furnace that assists in refining. The reason why there was no refining was because he had been busy with the family spirit before. As for refining the second magic weapon, it is naturally placed in the back. Taking a deep breath, Chen Daoxian was about to take out the Fengyin ore from the storage bag when he heard a change in the production room next door. Boom! A dull explosion came from next door. This explosion was followed by Qin Daolian's exclamation. Brother Dao Chu, you have superimposed the formations wrong again. At the beginning, you said that I was stupid in practicing swords. It seems that you are not much better. Shut up, you can do it. Hearing the conversation between the two, Qin Daoxuan's mouth twitched for a while, then he stood up expressionlessly, walked to the door of the production room, and laid down a soundproof formation. In an instant, the whole world was silent. Call. He let out a sigh of relief, throwing the troubles he just heard out of his mind. Qin Daoxuan's eyes narrowed slightly. The magic weapon he wants to refine today is not a first-order low-grade magic weapon, nor a first-order middle-grade magic weapon, but a first-order high-grade flying sword. Arguably, Qin Daoxian already has a first-order high-grade Feijian Feishua sword in his hands. It's just that the flying snow sword is a water-type flying sword. When using the rain-covering sword art, it is suitable to use the flying snow sword, but using the wind-chasing sword art conflicts with the attributes of the flying snow sword itself. Therefore, Qin Daoxian wanted to refine a wind attribute flying sword to cooperate with the power of wind-chasing sword art. In all first-order artifacts, the first-order high-grade instruments are slightly different from the first-order low-grade and middle-grade instruments. Generally speaking, the first-order low-grade magic tools can be purchased for only 50 spirit stones, and the price of the first-order middle-grade magic instruments is only twice as expensive, which is about 100 spirit stones. However, the price of the first-order high-grade instruments has skyrocketed, reaching at least 500 spirit stones. The reason why this happens is that the first-order high-grade magic weapon has already involved a slight attribute change. For example, the flying snow sword in Qin Daoxuan's hand is a water-type flying sword. If a cultivator who practices water attribute exercises uses it, he can increase his power by 30% out of thin air. Of course, most of the exercises practiced by cultivators in the qi refining stage are for basic purposes, and very few of them involve attribute changes. Premature cultivation of attribute exercises is not a good thing for monks. For example, if a cultivator practiced fire attribute exercises, in the process of foundation building, after the violent fire attribute true qi was transformed into true essence, it would bring huge trouble to the expansion of the sea of qi. Therefore, cultivators in the qi refining stage generally choose to switch to attribute exercises after they have established a foundation. Compared with non-attribute exercises, the advantages of attribute exercises are naturally greater, especially in terms of strength. According to the different attributes of the cultivator's exercises, the power of the same true essence is also different. Among them, the fire attribute exercises and the metallic exercises are the most powerful, while the water attribute exercises are much softer. But even if it is a water attribute technique, the true essence or true qi that is cultivated is more powerful than a non-attribute technique. Generally speaking, among the exercises of the same rank, the most powerful fire attribute exercises produce true essence that is more than 1.5 times more powerful than the true essences cultivated by non-attribute exercises. Among the monks of the same level of foundation establishment, the difference in cultivation techniques is also one of the important reasons for the difference in strength. Qin Daoxian threw the Fengyin stones one after another into the Rongling furnace. Compared with first-order spiritual minerals such as copper ore and black iron ore, although Fengyin stone is also a first-order spiritual ore, it contains a trace of wind attribute power, so the price is more than double that of copper ore. Not knowing this, Qin Daoxian needed more spirit ore to refine the first-order high-grade wind attribute flying sword. This is also the reason why Qin Daoxian has only refined a first-order high-grade flying sword over the years. It is only one aspect that his cultivation base is low in true qi, and another important reason is that the refining process of the first-order high-grade flying sword is more difficult, and the difficulty of fusion formation is also more difficult. Qin Daoxian was not worried about the fusion formation, not to mention that he had fully understood how to fusion formation before. There is even the function of Hongmeng Enlightenment Dao Sutra to store understanding, and he has basically figured out how to merge the second-order magic weapon. The only thing Chen Daoxian lacks now is the ability to refine second-order spiritual ore, otherwise he can try to refine second-order magic tools. Of course, it is a good idea to use the melting furnace to refine the second-order spiritual ore, but even if he refines the second-order magic weapon now, it is of little significance. With his cultivation level, it is still difficult to use the first-order high-grade flying sword. The second-order flying sword is not something he can play at all, and it is also a decoration when it is refined, which is thankless. The joystick that controls the melting furnace. Chen Daoxuan's face was solemn, and he observed the changes of Fengyin mine in the furnace with his divine sense. Unconsciously, 10 hours passed. A large amount of Fengyin ore was finally melted and deformed by the melting furnace, and the melted spirit ore was gradually merged into one under the action of the melting spirit formation. Even the wind attribute power on the Fengyin stone gradually merged with the aura. Although the wind attribute power on each wind song stone is very rare, the wind attribute power on so many wind song stones aggregates together. Attribute changes are still very obvious. Taking out the refined materials, Chen Daoxian clearly felt that this mass of liquid utensil embryo material and the utensil embryo material extracted from red copper ore exudes a completely different atmosphere. This kind of breath is the breath of attribute power. I saw the hot liquid embryo material in front of me. Chen Daoxian didn't dare to neglect, and quickly manipulated his true qi to shape it according to the style of Feijian. After a stick of incense, a flying sword-shaped embryo appeared in front of Chen Daoxian. Seeing this, he took a deep breath. Chen Daoxian knew that the next step was the biggest difficulty in refining first-order high-grade instruments. Compared with the first-order low-grade instruments, the fusion of the first-order high-grade instruments is much more difficult. Because the first-order low-grade magic weapon only requires at most 3 fusion formations, that is, the triple formation pattern. And the first-order high-grade magic weapon requires at least 7 fusion formations. Chen Daoxuan's first-order high-grade magic weapon has naturally higher requirements. He wants to fuse 9 times like the flying snow sword he made at the beginning, reaching the limit of the first-order high-grade magic weapon, with the 9-layer pattern. In this regard, Chen Daoxian is quite confident. Because not only has his cultivation level improved to the 5th level of qi refining, but the most important thing is that in the process of refining the materials, his spiritual sense and true qi are not consumed at all. Right now, he is almost in a full state, and it is naturally easy to blend in. Chapter 70. Along with the formation pattern engraved on the flying sword embryo, a trace of wind attribute power also hovered on the sword. Finally, the wind attribute power hovering around the sword body is increasing, and it gradually begins to affect the engraving of the pattern. Chen Daoxian, who had refined the first-order high-grade flying sword, knew in his heart that the success or failure of refining this sword was in one fell swoop. He held his breath, his thoughts were the same. Is not affected by the wind attribute power circling the sword body at all, and under the control of divine consciousness, the true qi is engraved on the sword body one after another. The formation pattern appeared on the sword body, and soon, it was hidden in the sword body and integrated with the embryo. 1, 2, 3. With the continuous superposition of the formation patterns, Chen Daoxian also began to sweat slightly on his forehead. This is a manifestation of the high consumption of spiritual consciousness and infuriating energy. Obviously, even with the assistance of the Rongling furnace, refining the first-order high-grade flying sword would cost him a lot. One can imagine how lucky it was to make the flying snow sword in the first place. 6, 7, 8, to the end. The wind attribute power on the sword is like substance, intertwined with aura, regardless of each other. At this moment, Chen Daoxian has 2 options. One is to give up and continue to inscribe the pattern. With this choice, he will get a first-order high-grade flying sword that is slightly inferior to the flying snow sword. The second is to continue to inscribe the pattern. For Chen Daoxian, giving up is obviously impossible. He was able to refine the flying snow sword when he was at the 3rd level of chi refining, not to mention that he has now reached the 5th level of chi refining, and he has the help of the Rongling furnace. Although it was still difficult for him to refine the 1st-grade flying sword with the 9-layer pattern, it was easier than before, and he loved it a lot. Sure enough, as the inscription of the 9th array pattern is gradually completed, the wind attribute power and aura surrounding the sword gradually converged with the pattern, and finally merged with the flying sword. At this moment, this flying sword does not look magical except that the aura flowing from time to time on the sword proves that it is of extraordinary origin. But Qin Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that this time, the wind attribute flying sword of the 1st order high grade was refined. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian showed a happy smile on his face. It's been more than a month. He was tortured every day by teaching the Qin family's younger generation of monks to refine. I finally had a rare good mood today. He owns his 2nd magic weapon, the 1st order high-grade wind attribute flying sword. Since then, he has had 2 flying swords, and they are both top-level 1st-rank flying swords with the 9-layer pattern. If a flying sword of this rank is placed in Zhou's auction house, at least 1,000 spirit stones can be sold for a sky-high price. Of course, whether it is the Qin family or Qin Daoxian, there is no shortage of spirit stones for the time being, and he will not sell them either. Looking at this flying sword, which is completely different from the flying snow sword, Qin Daoxian murmured, "What name should I give you?" Flying snow is like a plum, the breeze bears the shadow, let's call you the bearer's sword. Seemed to understand what he said, Qingying's sword let out a soft cry, and under the control of Qin Daoxian, it swam around his body like a fish. I don't know if it was his illusion, Qin Daoxian felt that the resistance of the Qingying sword when it cut through the air seemed to be much smaller than that of the Feishua sword. Is this the bonus brought by the wind attribute power? Qin Daoxian murmured, it's just an ordinary manipulation. The Qingying sword has this effect. If the wind-chasing sword art is used, I don't know what the situation will be. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian's heart suddenly moved. Is at this time. There was a movement in the storage bag. Qin Daoxian took out the blue scales in the storage bag. It turned out to be a message from Luo Li, and it was time for the transaction that the two had agreed upon. Put away the cyan scales. Qin Daoxian caressed the light body of the Qingying sword, and reluctantly put it into the storage bag. Unlock the soundproofing array. Qin Daoxian walked out of the production room and found that Qin Daochu and the others were still learning the refining tools in the production rooms next door. His dissatisfaction with the 5 young cultivators of the Qin family was reduced a lot these days. Although Qin Daochu and the others did not have a great talent for refining. But with this enthusiasm for learning, coupled with their unparalleled learning environment and resources, Qin Daoxian believes that they will definitely achieve something in the way of refining. Carefully left the Hongyin Feijian factory building. Qin Daoxian rose up against the wind and flew in the direction of the Seaview Pavilion on Sequoia Island. Sequoia Island. The moonlight sprinkled on the sea, covering the Seaviewing Pavilion and the sea standing on the sea with a layer of silver sand. Qin Daoxian was dressed in white, standing on the sea, facing the moonlight, like a fairy coming to the world. Is it early again? Qin Daoxian said silently. There is no way, Shuanghu Island is only 400 miles away from Sequoia Island, and the Demon Monkey Mountain of the Merman is thousands of miles away. Although Luo Li and the others set off early every time, and their speed was much faster than Qin Daoxian, it was still not as convenient as his rush to Sequoia Island. Flew and landed at Guanhai Pavilion. Qin Daoxian glanced at the water traces in the pavilion washed by seawater, and used fire control techniques to evaporate the water stains. Immediately sat on the stone bench, closed his eyes and rested. Is to close your eyes and rest. In fact, his consciousness sank to the depths of the sea of consciousness. Know the sea. 10 Stardust revolves around a golden sutra. It only took me 6 months to cultivate the wind-chasing sword art and rain-covering sword art to the perfect state, and now more than 4 months have passed, and I have had so many epiphanies, and I actually have 2 kinds of swords. I didn't even get the idea of fusion. Thinking of this, Chen Daoxian couldn't help being a little discouraged. For a long time, with the ability of Hongmeng Enlightenment Tao Sutra to store his understanding, whether he is learning the exercises, comprehending sword tactics, or even deducing the never-before-seen fusion spirit formation, all of them have no disadvantages. But unexpectedly, when the 2 first-order sword techniques were merged into one, they encountered a bottleneck. Even the epiphany cannot break through this bottleneck. If it was not clearly mentioned in the jade slip that the 2 swordsmanships were split from a complete swordsmanship, Chen Daoxian would have doubted whether the person responsible for the exchange of the swordsmanship and swordsmanship in Qianyuan Jianzong was playing with Chen. Home. Anyway, try again. Chen Daoxian made up his mind, and the 10 stardust collided again. Next second. Chen Daoxian's consciousness continued to rise, and the familiar epiphany appeared again. After half a column of incense, Chen Daoxian closed his eyes and stood up suddenly. I saw 2 flying swords flying out of his storage bag and surrounding him. Chen Daoxian himself also flew out of Guanhai Pavilion, facing the moonlight, standing on the sea, as if he was comprehending something. This moment, the moonlight, the sea water, and the Taoist man dressed in white and holding the sword seemed to merge into one. Next second, this picture was broken by Chen Daoxian. I saw him open his eyes, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. As he opened his eyes, the 2 flying swords around him also erupted with terrifying sword lights. Wow wow wow. The 2 flying swords chased in the air, but they all disappeared in the end. And then, it was actually raining on the sea surface, hazy, covering the sea surface with a radius of 100 zhang. The seabed not far away. A petite figure seemed to sense something and suddenly accelerated forward. Behind, the people of the Murin tribe were not worried about their princess, and they all quickened their pace and followed closely behind. After half a cup of tea, Luoli rushed to the sea not far from Guanhai Pavilion and saw an unforgettable scene in her life. A Taoist dressed in white, standing on the sea, surrounded by rainwater, hazy to see the real. Luoli discovered through his breath that this person was none other than Chen Daoxian. But now, Chen Daoxian seems to be in a state of epiphany. Luoli, who was also a cultivator, knew how unpredictable this state was for cultivators, and naturally he would not disturb him. In the next second, the rain seemed to suddenly rush, and there were white marks along with the rain. Do not know why. When Luoli saw the white marks in the rain, all the hairs on her body stood up. Is that the wind? Luoli muttered uncertainly. Although she is the princess of the merman race, Luoli has never seen such a mysterious sword art. Seeing this poignant picture in front of me, I couldn't help being stunned for a while. Chapter 71. Chen Daoxian didn't know that he was being watched by Luoli at this time. He is now fully devoted to the comprehension of chasing the wind and covering the rain sword art, with no distractions. On the sea, the rain is fast and slow, and the white marks are in the rain. It was very obvious at the beginning, but in the end, it actually merged into the rain, and the 2 are no longer separated from each other. This moment, Luoli, who was not far away, suddenly felt that the trembling feeling that made her pores stand up disappeared. But Luoli knew that the power of Chen Daoxian's flying sword not only did not weaken, but instead became more dangerous. Because his envoy's flying sword can actually blind the cultivator's consciousness and make outsiders automatically ignore the sense of crisis. Luoli, who has participated in many battles, knows how terrifying the effect of this kind of trick will be in battle. Just ask, the enemy Feijian is approaching, and you are aware of the danger. Whether it is defense or offense, you are at a disadvantage at this moment. Lori didn't know. Fortunately, he was not in the range of rain, otherwise her reaction would be even more unbearable. Even if her cultivation is a level higher than that of Chen Daoxian, it is equivalent to a human foundation-building cultivator. This shows that Chen Daoxuan's kendo level at the moment is enough to pose a certain threat to the foundation-building cultivator. Only. Not far away, the rain that enveloped Chen Daoxian suddenly dissipated. Chen Daoxuan's face was pale at the moment, and the true qi in the Dantian Qi Sea was completely consumed at this moment. Oops. Chen Daoxuan's eyes immediately returned to clarity, and he woke up from the epiphany state. But without his true energy, he couldn't even continue to use the wind control technique, and he stumbled and fell into the sea. In less than 3 breaths after he fell into the sea, a soft touch came from behind him. Chen Daoxuan's consciousness swept away, and he knew who was holding him in the water. Whoa! 2 figures burst out of the sea. It was Chen Daoxian and Luo Li. It's just that the posture of the two of them was a little awkward at this time. Chen Daoxian was hugged from behind by Luo Li, and a pair of Ro Yi hugged Chen Daoxian tightly. After half a cup of tea, Luo Li helped Chen Daoxian to sit down at Guanhai Pavilion, and asked with concern, "Are you all right?" Hearing this, a smile appeared on Chen Daoxuan's pale face, and he cupped his hands and said, "It's okay, thank you Miss Luo for your help, otherwise my trip would be in a mess." Hearing Chen Daoxuan's self-deprecating voice, Luo Li covered her mouth and laughed lightly. Seeing the other party smiling so happily, Chen Daoxian lowered his head and found that he was soaked all over at the moment, with his clothes just sticking to his body, very embarrassed. Seeing his appearance, Luo Lifei stepped forward, stretched out her plain white hand, and pressed it in front of Chen Daoxian. Immediately, water vapor evaporated from Chen Daoxuan's body. In the pavilion, the two of them were enveloped in a burst of water vapor, and even the atmosphere became a little charming. Half an hour. Seeing that Chen Daoxuan's whole body had recovered to the pure, Luo Li retracted his palm and said with a smile, "Okay. Thank you for making Miss Luo laugh." Chen Daoxian thanked him again. "We are friends now, so there is no need to thank you for this trivial matter." After he finished speaking, he blinked at Chen Daoxian. Seeing her like this, Chen Daoxian smiled and nodded, not knowing what to write in his heart. For a while, both of them were silent. "You. I." The two spoke in unison. Seeing this, Luo Li chuckled, shook her little hand and said, "You talk first." "Okay." Chen Daoxian nodded embarrassedly. "Last time I told Miss Luo about the purchase of Lingmi, because I haven't found a suitable channel for the time being, so this matter has to be postponed for the time being." Hearing this, Luo Li nodded, indicating that she was clear, and then said, "What about the weapon?" "We brought weapons." Having said that, Chen Daoxian untied a storage bag on his waist, handed it over, and said, "The flying swords refined in the past few months are all here." Luo Li took the storage bag, swept away her consciousness, and frowned slightly. "How do I feel? This time you have not refined as many flying swords as last time." Chen Daoxian nodded and said, "You feel right." He paused. "If I remember correctly, Miss Luo's clan has tens of thousands, right?" Hearing this, Luo Li was silent for a while, then said, "We now have a total of more than 67,000 clan members." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian nodded. "I was thinking about a question after I went back last time. With the speed at which my Chen family makes magic tools, it seems that it will take a long time to satisfy all of your mermen. Moreover, the service life of magic tools in the deep sea is shorter than that on land. As a result, I am afraid that it will be more difficult for the Chen family to meet your needs for magic tools." Hearing this, Luo Li did not speak. She knew that what Chen Daoxian said was the truth. At the speed of the Chen family's production of flying swords, it is indeed a bit difficult to satisfy all the mermaids. Seeing her like this, Chen Daoxian continued, "So after I went back last time, I was doing one thing, that is, I want to train artifact refiners in the clan. But Miss Luo, you also know that it is very difficult to train an artifact refiner. Not only does it take a lot of resources, but we also need the hands-on teaching of our senior artifact artisans from the Qin family. Therefore, the production of Feijian has been delayed during this period of time, but please rest assured, Miss Luo, when our Qin family trains this batch of craftsmen, we will be able to make a large number of magic tools for your mermen. By then, I think you mermen will never be short of weapons again. Hearing this, Luo Li immediately blushed with excitement, grabbed Qin Daoxuan's cuff, and said excitedly, "What are you saying is true?" Cough cough, Qin Daoxian pulled away his cuffs calmly and smiled, "It's true, I have to thank you mermen for this matter. It is precisely because of our transactions with you that we have earned a lot of spirit stones, and our Qin family has enough resources to train refiners." Luo Li didn't care about Qin Daoxuan's movement of pulling his hand away, his little head kept nodding, agreeing, "This is what you said, win-win, right?" "Right." Qin Daoxian laughed. After a few more chats, the two completed the transaction. This is the third transaction between the two parties. Everyone has established enough trust, so they are very confident about each other in the transaction. Transaction complete. Luo Li looked at Qin Daoxian and said, "You are exhausted at the moment, how can you go back?" "Ah." Qin Daoxian ignored this issue and replied, "It's okay, I'll just recover here overnight." Luo Li glanced around, shook his head and said, "This place is inaccessible, and there are bound to be monsters. In order to avoid danger, let me give you a ride." After finishing speaking, Mei Mu looked at Qin Daoxian. After thinking about it, Qin Daoxian smiled and nodded, "Then I will trouble Miss Luo." Luo Li smiled slightly, shook her head, took a step forward, and grabbed Qin Daoxuan's right hand. Next second, Qin Daoxian only felt that the world was spinning for a while, and he regained his senses again. He had plunged into the sea with Luo Li. This is the second time Qin Daoxian has entered the sea in his life. The time when he fell into the sea just now was too hasty, and before he had time to feel it, he was rescued by Luo Li from the sea. Now, he finally felt what it was like to walk through the sea. In sea water. At a depth of about 100 meters, the faint moonlight in the sky shone into the sea, only emitting a hazy moonlight, which was very dim. Fortunately, Qin Daoxian possessed divine consciousness, so he was not too panicked in the face of this dim scene. He swept through his consciousness and found that the appearance of Luo Li and the merpeople behind him was actually attached to a thin film, which isolated them from the sea. This is... Qin Daoxian looked suspiciously at Luo Li, who was holding his right hand, because he found that there was such a thin film on the surface of his body. Obviously, this is a water escape technique unique to the merman race. Seemingly knowing what Qin Daoxian wanted to ask, Luo Li smiled and said, "This is the innate supernatural power of our merman." Chapter 72. Spring and autumn come, and time flies. In the blink of an eye, a year has passed. Twin Lakes Island. About a dozen miles away from the industrial zone, a huge mansion with green bricks and green tiles, covering an area of hundreds of acres, is located in the main spirit eye of the spirit vein. The owner of this mansion is the young patriarch of the Qin family, Qin Daoxian. On weekdays, in addition to Qin Daoxian, there are only some young women from the Qin family who act as maids here, clean up for Qin Daoxian, and maintain the flowers and plants of the Lingfu. Fortunately, it is located above the spiritual veins of the Qin family. Compared with the wilderness plain outside the spirit gathering array, it is completely different. In Lingfu. In a fresh and elegant courtyard. A figure sat cross-legged in front of Lingtan. Above the Lingtan, a water spirit bead is quietly suspended, and the mist gathers from the spirit pool towards the water spirit bead. Refining, transforming it into true qi, and finally storing it in the Dantian Qi Sea. Call. Qin Daoxian opened his eyes, and a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. Compared with the spiritual eyes in the cave mansion of the Red Copper Mountains, the spiritual energy in front of the mouth is many times more abundant. Not to mention that in front of this Ling Tan, even within the 10-mile radius gathering spirit formation, the aura floating in the air is not much less than the aura in the eyes of the spirit at the beginning. Compared with the past, the current cultivation environment is like heaven. I didn't expect that the difference between the late stage of qi refining and the middle stage of qi refining is so big. It took me nearly a year to break through from the 6th level of qi refining to the 7th level of qi refining. Chen Daoxian sighed. Although he knew that it would become more difficult the further back he practiced. But he didn't expect that the level from the middle stage of qi refining to the late stage of qi refining would block him for nearly a year. After all, Chen Daoxian was 17 and nearly 18 this year. Compared with a year and a half ago, his immature face has also become more mature. Especially during this period of time when he was in charge of family affairs, living in qi and nourishing the body, his temperament has undergone earth-shaking changes. No longer a young cultivator, but a patriarch of the Qin clan who holds the power of the family. Contemplative room. A figure flew over from afar. Chen Daoxian looked up and saw that it was the only female cultivator of the Qin family, Chen Daoyan. For more than a year, with the joint assistance of the Shui Lingzhu, Qi Gathering Pill, and first-order spiritual veins, Chen Daolian's cultivation has advanced by leaps and bounds, and has reached the 3rd level of Qi refining. Compared with the time Chen Daoxian took 5 years to break through from the 1st layer of qi refining to the 3rd layer of qi refining, it was 5 times faster. Not only Chen Daoyan, but Chen Daochu, like her, is now at the 3rd level of qi refining. As for the other 3 who had broken through the 1st level of qi refining together, apart from Chen Daochuan who had broken through to the 2nd level of qi refining, the other 2, like the remaining 4 immortal seedlings, were still at the 1st level of qi refining. This is also impossible. Although there are various resources to assist, but in the case of the same resources, the cultivation speed of monks with good spiritual roots is faster than that of monks with poor spiritual roots. In fact, these few monks with low spiritual roots were fortunate enough to be born in the Qin family. If they were in a big family, monks with poor spiritual roots like them would not get much resources at all. Not to mention the same treatment as the cultivator of the spiritual root. The Qin family has no shortage of resources for cultivation, but there is a shortage of people, so they poured resources into it regardless of the cost. It is foreseeable that as the new Qin family children grow up, the Qin family's allocation of cultivation resources will definitely become closer to the big family. Also, good qualifications are preferred. After all, this is the only way to maximize the use of resources and enhance the strength of the family. Young patriarch. Lowering her body, Chen Daoyan took 2 steps forward and respectfully saluted Chen Daoxian. Compared with a year ago, Chen Daolian's cowardice disappeared, and the whole person became more confident from the inside out. Chen Daoxian nodded. What's the matter? The old patriarch is back, at the Hangyin Feijian factory. Real? Hearing that Uncle 13 was back, Chen Daoxian hurriedly stood up from the futon, and his serious face was replaced by a look of surprise. Seeing the expression of the young patriarch, Chen Daoyan looked like she wanted to laugh and didn't dare to laugh, her face flushed red. Chen Daoxian glanced at her and said with a smile, "Let's go, come with me to see." As he said that, he waved his sleeves, used the wind-fighting technique, wrapped the figures of the 2, and flew towards the Feijian factory 10 miles away. Less than half a cup of tea. The figures of the 2 men descended at the Feijian factory. With his consciousness swept away, Chen Daoxian discovered Chen Xian's location. Uncle 13. Before anyone arrived, Chen Daoxuan's voice already sounded in Chen Xian's ears. Chen Xianhe turned his head when he heard the sound, and saw his nephew, who was brought up since childhood, with a smile on his old face. "You came just in time, I'm testing the refining skills of these boys." Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Daochu and the others who were pointing at him, and said with a smile, "Uncle 13, I promise you will be surprised this time." Oh. Hearing this, Chen Xian's eyes lit up slightly. Have to say. For more than a year, the Qin family has invested too much resources in the Qin Daochu 5 people. Compared with the resources Qin Daoxian spent in learning the refining equipment, the resources Qin Daochu spent at least 10 times as much as him. If it wasn't for Qin Daoxian talking about his life all day long, or if the mere people had a copper vein in their hands, there would be no shortage of spiritual or resources. It is impossible for Qin Daochu to become an artifact refiner. Actually, the current Qin Daochu and Qin Daoyan are not really a refiner. Because according to the evaluation of the refiners in the immortal cultivation world, even the lowest level first-order low-grade artifact refiners must be proficient in at least 3 refining methods for first-order low-grade instruments. And Qin Daochu and others, except for refining a red shadow flying sword, other magic tools are not. Not only that, they said that they could refine the red shadow flying sword, but they couldn't refine this step at all. Because of this step, the Rongling furnace and the ordinary workers who control it are all done for it. After all, Qin Daochu and the others can only be regarded as half a pot of water. But half a pot of water is half a pot of water. It is an indisputable fact that Qin Daochu and the others can perfectly produce the red shadow Feijian with the help of the Rongling furnace. This is also the only place where Qin Daoxian feels relieved. He doesn't need Qin Daochu and others to reach the level of refiners required by the outside world, as long as they can meet the assembly line requirements of the Feijian factory. Because this means that Feijian factory will usher in a new round of production capacity explosion. Under Qin Xian's gaze, one by one, Qin Daochu and the others refined the red shadow Feijian intact. Qin Xianhe took over the flying swords they refined, injected a burst of true energy, and repeatedly praised, "The refining is good, not much worse than your little patriarch." Hearing the praise from the old patriarch, Qin Daochu and the others showed happy expressions on their faces. This proves that their hard work for more than a year has not been in vain. After speaking, Qin Xianhe looked at Qin Daoxian and said, "Since they have been able to refine the red shadow Feijian at the beginning of the Dao, shouldn't the expansion of the Feijian factory be put on the agenda?" Hearing this, Qin Daoxian frowned slightly. Chapter 73. He glanced at Qin Xianhe, hesitated before speaking, then waved at Qin Daochu's group and said, "Okay, I'll be here today. You go back first." Hearing this, Qin Daochu and the others looked at each other with a look of liberation on their faces, but they didn't dare to laugh out loud, so they lowered their heads and smirked. "Patriarch, young patriarch, I will retire first." After finishing speaking, Qin Daochu and his party disappeared without a trace. "Watch everyone leave." Qin Xianhe said, "Daoxian, is there any problem?" Qin Daoxian nodded. "Uncle 13. Didn't you tell me before, do you need to slow down the expansion of the Feijian market in Sangxiafang City?" After finishing speaking, Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Xianhe very puzzled. It's not that the Qin family has no chance to sell them wildly. In fact, in the past year or so, the Qin family has accumulated a large number of flying swords in addition to the transactions with the mermen. More than a year. Qin Xianhe sold Feijian in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture almost at the frequency of 1 Feijian per day, and sold more than 300 Feijian in total. This speed, compared with other magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City, it is not outstanding, nor does it attract much attention. However, this has recently changed. After listening to Qin Xian's narration, Qin Daoxian was shocked and hurriedly said, "You mean, our Hongyin Feijian store has been spied on by others recently?" "That's right." Qin Xianhe said with a sullen face, "According to my observation for more than a year, there are a total of 43 magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City, most of which are operated by Sanxiu, and only 7 are like us. The small family is running it. The magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City are not very profitable. First of all, their source of supply, that is, those second-hand instruments, were purchased at a high price from the children of the big family. In addition, the price they sell is not high, there are only 50 spirit stones, so the profit is very limited. Actually, If the Qin family had not adopted the method of industrialized assembly line production, even if Qin Daoxian used the method of opening and hanging to refine the magical instruments, he would not have earned much spiritual stones in a year. Not to mention those magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City, there is no magician behind them. Chen Xianhe paused and continued, according to my investigation, none of the 43 magic weapon shops are behind the establishment of foundation monks. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian seemed quite surprised. In Guang'an Prefecture, foundation building cultivators are not uncommon. Unexpectedly, there are no foundation building cultivators sitting behind the 43 magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City. This made Qin Daoxian quite surprised. But Qin Xian's next explanation let him know the reason. The reason is that opening a magic weapon shop in Sangxiafang City is not a profitable business. The supply of goods, shop rent, labor costs, and the tax of Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng, if these costs are deducted, each shop can earn a few hundred spirit stones a year, which is considered a fortune. There are even many small shops in remote locations that cannot sell a few flying swords all year round, and they will lose money after a year. This is also the reason why many shops in Sangxiafang City are empty. In the final analysis, loose cultivators are reluctant to buy second-hand magic tools sold in magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City. Let me ask, who wants to buy a second-hand magic weapon at the price of a magic weapon? But scattered cultivators are not like children of big families. They have special channels to buy low-level magic tools, so they can only grit their teeth and buy these second-hand magic tools. This is also the reason why Hongyin Fijian's business is so hot. It stands to reason that our shop sells more than 300 flying swords a year, which will not affect the huge market of magic weapons in Sangxiafang City, but the situation seems to be a bit unexpected now. Speaking of this, Qin Xianhe had a wry smile on his face, because after learning that our store has brand new flying swords for sale, those loose cultivators who originally went to other magic weapon stores to buy second-hand magic weapons would rather try their luck in our store. I also don't want to go to other stores to buy second-hand instruments. Come to think of it, this is normal too. Given the opportunity to buy a brand new magic weapon, who would buy a second-hand one at the same price? But in this way, the Hongyin Feijian store has become a thorn in the eyes of the peers. Now the Qin family has two choices. One is to increase the price of Feijian. Only in this way, it is bound to offend the scattered cultivators in the entire scattered cultivator market. The Qin family is definitely not willing to do this, because doing so will not only offend the loose cultivator but also lose the market. The price of 50 spirit stones per mouthful of flying swords is basically the limit price that small scattered cultivators can bear. That would be equivalent to shutting out the largest market in Sangxiafang City. Naturally, the Qin family would not do this. If the Qin family does not have an industrialized assembly line, it may be sold at a high price. But they have an industrial assembly line, and what they need most is a huge market that digests their production capacity. And the large number of loose cultivators in the loose cultivation market is just right for their Qin family. Since we can't raise the price, there is only one way, and we will die with our peers. Qin Daoxian breathed a sigh of relief when he heard that there was no foundation establishment cultivator sitting behind the magic weapon shop in Sangxiafang City. He was afraid that there was a foundation building family behind the magic weapon shop in Sangxiafang City. Because the Qin family at this time is still too thin compared to any foundation building family in Guang'an Prefecture. Whether it is the number of monks or the quality of monks, there is a huge gap. To be honest, Qin Daoxian didn't pay too much attention to the scattered repair shopkeepers of the magic weapon shops. Loose cultivators represent that the opponent is weak and can only be supported by one person at most. For this kind of magic tool shop, the Qin family burns incense without asking the other party to trouble them. How dare they provoke the Qin family? The only thing to be afraid of is the 7 small families mentioned by Qin Xianhe. Although these small families are all cheer-refining families, there is a family called the Mo family. In addition to having a first-order spiritual vein, the family also has dozens of qi refining cultivators. The strength is much stronger than the current Qin family. If the two sides fight, the Qin family won't take any advantage. This is also considering that Qin Daoxuan's strength is at the top level among the cultivators in the qi refining period. Otherwise, the Qin family would have no drama at all. Because now the Qin family is really capable of fighting, probably only Qin Daoxian alone. Qin Xianhe only has the 6th level of qi refining, and he is old. If he fights with others, it is hard to say whether he can win the 5th level of qi refining. Not to mention Qin Daochu and the others. Although they have broken through to the 3rd level of qi refining in just 1 year, they have almost devoted their attention to refining tools in the past year. Just got to the entry level. In addition, he has also mastered a wind fighting technique and can fly. This kind of strength is probably only able to beat loose cultivators of the same level. In other words, Qin Daoxian is the only fighting force of the Qin family. Thinking of this, Qin Daoxian couldn't help frowning. He looked at Qin Xian and said, "Uncle 13, what can you do?" After all, Qin Xianhe, who has been around for more than a year, must be far better than him when it comes to understanding the city of scattered cultivators. Seeing Qin Daoxian humbly asking for advice, Qin Xianhe smiled and stroked his beard, and said, "I really have a good solution." Chapter 74. Southwest Waters of Wangxinghai. It is a spiritual island tens of thousands of miles away from Shuanghu Island. This spiritual island is the Mo family land. Like the Qin family on Shuanghu Island, the Mo family also has a first-order spiritual vein, but unlike the Qin family, the Mo family's spiritual vein was not cultivated. It was discovered by chance on this Lingdao hundreds of years ago, the ancestor of the Mo family. Have to say, the Mo clan's luck is very good. For hundreds of years, relying on this spiritual vein, the number of Mo family cultivators has never been lower than double digits. Even 200 years ago, the Mo family had a foundation building cultivator. It's just that the foundation establishment cultivator died a few decades ago, and the Mo family fell into a trough. But even so, compared to the Qin family, the Mo family's heritage is still much deeper. In the horizon, a figure flew from far to near, towards a cave on Mo's Lingshan mountain. This person lowered his body and looked at his appearance. The person who came was in his 30s, with a white face and no beard. He was dressed in a lavender Taoist robe and looked extraordinarily graceful and luxurious. This Mo family cultivator's cultivation level is as high as the 9th level of qi refining, and he is obviously in the stage of polishing and purifying his true qi. As long as he has polished and purified his true qi to the limit, he can try to build a foundation when he enters the state of perfection. Enter the cave. An old man in his 50s is sitting cross-legged on a lotus-shaped instrument, closing his eyes and practicing. Patriarch. Seeing the old man, the white-faced and beardless middle-aged cultivator saluted and said respectfully. The old man of the Mo family, who was called the Patriarch, opened his eyes, saw the middle-aged monk, and said solemnly, "Yu Qing, why are you back? Did something happen to the shop in Sangxiafeng City?" Hearing this, the middle-aged cultivator named Mo Yuqing said with a solemn expression, "That's right." Hearing that there was a problem with the family business, the old man hurriedly stood up and stepped forward 2 steps, "Come on quickly." "Yes." Mo Yuqing explained the ins and outs of the matter to the patriarch in front of him. The Mo family leader's cultivation level is higher than that of Mo Yuqing, and he has reached the perfect state of qi refining. He only needs a foundation building pill and the support of a second-order spiritual vein, and he can immediately try to build a foundation. It can be said. The Mo family's magic weapon shop is not only the lifeline of the Mo family's industry, but also the hope of the Mo family's leader to build a foundation. It is precisely because the Mo's treasure pavilion makes nearly 1,000 spiritual stones every year, which gives the old man hope to buy the foundation establishment pill. Otherwise, the few acres of spiritual fields and a small spiritual medicine garden planted with the family's first-order spiritual veins would not even be enough to satisfy the cultivation of the family monks, let alone support him as the patriarch to build the foundation. Therefore, for Mo clan chief Mo Changsheng, Mo clan's treasure pavilion is his hope for enlightenment, and he must not lose it. You mean that the Qin family on Shuanghu Island has a group of refiners who have invaded the business of our Mo's treasure pavilion? Right. Mo Yuqing nodded. Because of the influence of the Hongyin Feijian shop, the profit of my Mo's treasure pavilion has dropped by 50% this year, and it's only less than 500 spirit stones. What? Hearing this, Mo Changsheng immediately panicked. He is already 53 this year. According to the consensus of the practice world, if a cultivator cannot successfully establish a foundation before the age of 60, with the decline of qi and blood, the probability of success in establishing a foundation will decrease as the qi and blood decline. In other words, Mo Changsheng couldn't wait a few years. Originally, the Mo family had accumulated more than 30,000 spiritual stones in order to support his patriarch in building the foundation. But Mo Changsheng knew that 30,000 spirit stones would not be safe to buy the foundation establishment pill at Zhou's auction house. According to Zhou's auction house's average auction price for the foundation pill, the Mo family must at least prepare more than 40,000 spirit stones. This is not even the price that Mo Changsheng paid to find a way to find a foundation-building family with a second-order spiritual vein for help after he obtained the foundation establishment pill, and borrowed others to break through the second-order spiritual vein. Calculate like this. Not to mention that Mo's treasure pavilion earns 500 spirit stones every year. Even if he earns 1,000 spirit stones every year, Mo Changsheng is not enough. Thinking of this, he paced anxiously in the cave. A long time. He raised his head, looked at Mo Yuqing and said, "Have you talked to the Qin family? As long as they are willing to sell the magic weapon to us, Mo's treasure pavilion, are willing to buy it at the price of 50 spirit stones." Hearing this, Mo Yuqing shook his head. "We've talked about it, but the old man of the Qin family doesn't know much about it, so he doesn't agree with it no matter what." Court death. Mo Chang waved his hand in anger, and the furnishing in the cave immediately turned to dust. Facing the anger of the patriarch, Mo Yuqing lowered his head. After a long while, Mo Yuqing raised his head, saw Mo Changsheng's terrifying eyes, and his heart trembled slightly, and said, "Patriarch, Yuqing thinks that we have to take a long-term view on this matter." How to take the long view? Mo Changsheng scolded, "Without the profits of Mo's treasure pavilion, I have little hope of building a foundation. My Mo family must have foundation-building cultivators." As if to hide his desire to build a foundation, and as if to convince Mo Yuqing that he was not selfish, Mo Changsheng added this sentence. Hearing this, Mo Changqing was silent, wondering what he was thinking. Twin Lakes Island. Hongyin Feijian Factory. Is this method really feasible? After Chen Daoxian heard Chen Ziyan's idea, his eyes suddenly lit up, but he still had some doubts in his heart. He felt that he had always misunderstood Uncle 13, and always thought that the other party was conservative and outdated. He didn't expect Uncle 13 to be so courageous and dare to play this trick. If the Mo family and the 6 small families can't give up the interests of the Sangxiafang city's magical instrument market, they will definitely take the bait. Chen Xianhe was confident and said with a smile, "In short, this method can be summed up in 2 words." With that said, Chen Xianhe raised a finger schemingly, "Take advantage of the situation." Take advantage of the situation, it's a good move to take advantage of the situation. Chen Daoxian muttered. However, if this method is to be effective, there must be a premise, that is, to drive the Mo family and other magic weapon shops in the sanctuary city to a dead end. Forced to a dead end? Right. A dangerous light flashed in Chen Ziyan's eyes. If you don't drive them to a dead end, how could they ignore the decree of Qianyuan Jianzong and choose to take the risk? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian immediately refreshed his understanding of Uncle 13. Sure enough, the 13th uncle, who dared to set foot on the battlefield of the Izumo kingdom at the 3rd level of chi refining, was by no means as harmless as he appeared on the surface. Perhaps, if it wasn't for the family drag, if Uncle 13 chose to be a loose cultivator, he might go further. Looking at Uncle 13's pale temples, Chen Daoxian couldn't help feeling emotional. Since we want to drive them to a dead end, we have to change the previous strategy of slow shipments and choose to ship in large quantities. In this way, it is imperative to expand the Feijian factory. Fortunately, at the beginning of the Dao, they have been able to skillfully refine the red shadow flying sword, and they are not afraid that no one will refine the flying sword after the factory expansion. Speaking of this, Chen Xianhe flushed with excitement. He knew that once this matter was done, the Qin family would go to a new level. It would no longer be a small family with no name, but a well-known craft refining family in the entire Guang'an prefecture. Chapter 75. The next month. With the assistance of Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian, the factory building of Hongyin Feijian Factory has been continuously expanded, and the production room has expanded from 5 to 30, a full 6-fold expansion. Hongyin Feijian Factory. Chen Daoxian looked at the neat and orderly production room in front of him, turned to look at Chen Liangyu beside him, and said, "Director Chen, how are the apprenticeships in your factory trained? Will it not delay Feijian production?" Hearing this, Chen Liangyu immediately patted his chest and assured, "Patriarch, young patriarch, please rest your heart 10,000. For more than a year, I will follow the apprentice training system you mentioned, young patriarch, at least for the factory. Nearly 100 skilled furnace operators have been trained here, which can fully meet the expansion of the factory." Speaking of this, Chen Liangyu was full of regret. That is to say, there are not many members of my Chen family in the age group of 16 to 18 years old. Otherwise, there would be more furnace operators in our factory. Chen Daoxian, who is a peer of the same age, is naturally clear about the reason why Chen Liangyu said that there are not many people over the age of 16. In fact, it is not just that there are not many clansmen over the age of 16. To be precise, the monster disaster in Changping County more than 10 years ago almost caused the Chen clan to fail. But at that time, only one monk, Chen Xianhe, was guarding the entire Shuanghu Island, and it was inevitable that he could not take good care of it. Seeing the atmosphere at the scene is a little sad. Chen Daoxian patted Chen Liangyu on the shoulder and comforted, "All this is over, I promise, the Chen family will never have the same situation that happened back then." Chen Liangyu nodded heavily. Feijian Factory has added 25 production rooms, and each production room is equipped with a filler, a furnace operator, and a furnace operator apprentice system. A total of 75 new workers are required. And now, these workers are all in place, plus Chen Daochu and others, the complete production line has been laid. This has been more than a month. The busiest person is none other than Chen Daoxian. Because he has spent more than a month, he has hardly slept, and he has refined 25 giant Rongling furnaces, plus the original 5 Rongling furnaces in the Feijian factory. At present, the Hongyin Feijian factory has a total of 30 Rongling furnaces, one for each production room. Fortunately, the Rongling furnace assisted him in refining the silver moonstone, otherwise he would not have enough time to refine so many Rongling furnaces. Fortunately, all of this came to an end with the concerted efforts of everyone. Today is the first day of test production after the expansion of the Hongyin Feijian factory. As the director of the Hongyin Feijian factory, Chen Liangji's burden is still very heavy. Because he had to arrange the working hours of the workers according to the time when Chen Daochu and the others refined the instruments. Fortunately, there is an example of Chen Daoxian. The follow-up production work only needs to copy Chen Daoxuan's production mode, and the only thing that needs to be bothered is the management of the workers. Because now the factory is not like it used to be, there are only a dozen workers. In the current Feijian factory, there are a full 90 people, even if not including the cultivators who make Feijian. If apprentices are added, this number will expand to more than 100 people. With so many people, it is not an easy task to manage well and maximize the production efficiency of the factory. After all, this is not the Earth, and Chen Liangyu is also the first-time director of the factory, and everything is going on. If Qin Daoxian had not put forward a lot of constructive management suggestions, it is estimated that Chen Liangyu would still be at a loss as to how to manage it. Soon. One day of production work is over. Qin Daoxian finished refining the last flying sword in his hand. Looking at the Qin workers in the factory who clocked in and got off work, they walked into Qin Liangji's office. Uncle 13. Seeing Qin Xianhe in Qin Liangji's office, Qin Daoxian greeted with a smile. Qin Xianhe smiled and said, "Come here and see the production situation today." Hearing this, Qin Daoxian took the production record sheet handed over by Qin Liangyu. This kind of production record table was created by Qin Daoxian copying the production record table of his previous life. Qin Daoxian took over the form, and it was written on it that the number of Qiaying Feijian produced today reached 27. Seeing Qin Daoxian frowning slightly, Qin Liangyu explained, because today is the first day of production for many workers, the improper operation has destroyed 2 furnaces of materials, and another flying sword was improperly refined by Qin Daozi, which led to the failure of the refining of the flying sword. Qin Daoxian knew clearly that the Qin Daozi mentioned by Qin Liangyu was the youngest of the many Qin family cultivators, and he was just over 8 years old this year. This has to be put in the previous life. Qin Daoxian used child labor illegally, and he would have to go to prison. But in this life, no one thought there was anything wrong with what he did. Even Qin Daoxian himself felt that there was nothing wrong with what he did. Compared with the ancestors of the Qin family who sacrificed their lives, the environment for Qin Daochu to grow up is now countless times better. You don't have to go to the battlefield of Izumo and work hard, just produce Feijian in the Feijian factory with peace of mind, and you can have abundant resources to practice. This kind of treatment, not to mention compared with the Qin ancestors, is that if many children of the great clan knew about it, they would break their heads and want to come here to work. Because the Qin family treats the family monks very well. There is never a shortage of all the medicinal herbs to assist the practice, the supply of water spirit beads is constant, and the spiritual energy is sufficient. This training mode can only be enjoyed by the elite children of the big family. Even Qin Daoxian planned to buy Lingmi for the Qin family and the Mare people in Guang'an House next. It's okay to buy Lingmi for the Qin family cultivator, after all, the quantity is limited. To buy Lingmi for the merman, this is a big scale. The Qin family must have a certain strength or background to prevent outsiders from peeping. Just like the Hongyin Feijian shop was peeped at by other small families this time. What if the Zhou family opened the Hongyin Feijian store? Those little families in Sangxiafang City, let alone peeping, might be so frightened that they shut down their shops overnight. This is the embodiment of family power. And the best way to reflect the power of the family is the power of the family. But the Qin family now lacks family strength. If it wasn't for the peeping at the Hongyin Feijian store this time, Qin Xianhe would not have thought of this method to kill the chickens and set an example for the Qin family. In fact, Qin Daoxian also knew in his heart that in Wan Xinghai, no force could become stronger by blindly growing. Because as long as you develop, you will inevitably touch the interests of other forces. Even if it does not touch the interests of other forces, it will attract the jealousy of other forces. In the face of this situation, the Qin family could only fight back fiercely, killing and maiming the pretender, and publicizing it, so as to ensure that they would not suffer more prying eyes. Next. For a whole month. The Feijian factory was fully powered and entered into a frantic production rhythm. Every day, 27 or 8 flying swords are produced. After half a month. When everyone was almost running in, the scrap rate of Feijian suddenly dropped to 0, that is to say, 30 Feijian were produced every day. In 1 month, the Hongyin Feijian factory produced nearly 900 Feijian, and the production capacity has skyrocketed. Chapter 76. Shuanghu Island Port. Do you remember what I told you? Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Daochu and others who came to see him and Qin Xianhe off, and warned. Remember. Qin Daochu and the others nodded quickly. After arranging the family monks, Qin Daoxian looked at Qin Liangyu and Qin Beiwang again. The production work of the factory and the construction of the school in Changping County will be handed over to you. Qin Liangyu and Qin Beiwang looked at each other and said, please rest assured, the patriarch and the young patriarch, we will definitely live up to our mission. Qin Daoxian nodded, then waved his hand, go back. After a stick of incense. Standing on the deck of the Tsangyun, watching the gradually blurred figures of everyone on the dock, Qin Daoxian couldn't help but feel a trace of reluctance in his heart. After more than a year, he will set foot in Guang'an again. It's just that this trip to Guang'an is not a simple matter of purchasing materials and delivering goods. Is to remove obstacles on the way forward for his Qin family. Seemed to think that Qin Daoxian was worried, and Qin Xianhe, who was standing beside him, patted him on the shoulder and said with relief, don't worry, although this move has certain risks, it is not a big risk. If the operation is done well, my Qin family will not only be able to survive this crisis, but also the future development will be smooth sailing. I'm not worried, Qin Daoxian shook his head. I think it's the Mo family who should be worried, said. He gently rubbed the storage bag around his waist. In the storage bag, Fei Xue and Qingying were lying quietly, as if they sensed the master's intention, and let out a soft sound. Ha ha! Seeing Qin Daoxuan's confident look, Qin Xianhe laughed out loud. Well said. Why are we worried? We should ask him if the Mo family is afraid of us. After finishing speaking, a cold light flashed in Qin Ziyan's eyes. Guang'an Prefecture Xiancheng. After a month, the two set foot on the vast Lingbei Island again. On this trip to Guang'an, the two of them have already been familiar with each other. Back at the store, carrying a huge number of flying swords, Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxian were both waiting for a big fight. But before that, they have one more thing to do. This is also a key step for Qin Xianhe to take advantage of the situation. Otherwise, even if the Qin family repelled the Mo family, there would still be other small families coveting the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City. Therefore, compared to subduing a few small families in the sanctuary artifact market, what the Qin family has to do this time is to talk about tiger skin. The next day. Guangganfu Core Business District, Suiyu Building. Kuyolu is the most high-end restaurant in the Core Business District, and the ingredients here are all the best in Guang'an Prefecture. Having a meal here, even an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator would have suffered for a long time. However, today, Qin Xianhe entertained an important guest here. The entrance of Suiyu Building. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe stood side by side, waiting for the arrival of a big man. Uncle 13, how did you meet this Zhou family patrol deacon? Hearing this, Qin Xianhe paused. To be precise, I don't know him, but his son. His son? Qin Daoxian frowned. Yes, Qin Xianhe rubbed his hands with a smile. In Guang'an Prefecture, sometimes money is better than strength. Qin Daoxian shook his head. I still can't believe it. How could a dignified foundation building cultivator accept our banquet? Qin Xianhe smiled and said nothing. He can't say that he has a first-rank high-grade craftsman in his family, and he admires this senior very much, right? Ordinary qi refiners are naturally not in the eyes of senior foundation builders, but an artifact refiner is different. Even if he didn't use a first-order crafter, he still didn't have a few juniors. Maybe it will be useful to the other party in the future. Besides, Qin Ziyan's trip was to give gifts to the other party and flatter the other party. There is no reason why this foundation establishment cultivator would not accept it. Waited for a stick of incense. Just when the two of them were waiting anxiously, the guest Qin Xianhe was waiting for finally arrived. Treading the cloud beast on the beast car. The two monks got out of the car one after the other. The older one, wearing the casual clothes of the Zhou family patrol team, looked quite cool. This monk looks at his age, about 40 years old, his face is sturdy, he walks with dragon and tiger steps, and when he looks forward, he is cold and murderous, and it is terrifying. Chen Xianhe saw at a glance that this person must have been on the battlefield of Izumo. Chen Xianhe is all too familiar with the aura of a battlefield sergeant. This is the Zhou Family Foundation establishment cultivator that Chen Xianhe wants to entertain, Zhou Mucheng, in terms of seniority, the same name as Zhou Mubai. The young man behind Zhou Mucheng was his son, Zhou Xiliang. It is precisely because of the constant bribery and befriending this person for more than a year that Chen Xianhe was able to invite this big man behind the other party today. Fellow Taoist Zhou. Chen Xianhe quickly stepped forward, cupped his hands and greeted Zhou Xiliang, but looked at Zhou Mucheng who was beside him, and then looked at Zhou Xiliang with expectant eyes. "See you." Zhou Xiliang proudly introduced, "This is my father. What about the first-order high-grade craftsman of your family that you mentioned earlier?" Hearing the words, Chen Xianhe quickly greeted Chen Daoxian behind him, "Daoxian, don't come to see Senior Zhou." Chen Daoxian did not dare to neglect. Walked forward in 3 or 2 steps, bowed his hands to Zhou Mucheng, and said, "Junior Chen Daoxian, see Senior Zhou. Are you the Chen family's first-ranked top-grade craftsman?" Zhou Mucheng's voice was a bit harsh, it sounded like a metal collision, which made people feel uncomfortable. "It's the younger generation." Hearing this answer, Zhou Mucheng was quite surprised. He originally thought that even if the Chen family had a first-order weapon refiner, they should be a very old cultivator in the qi refining stage. This made him suddenly interested in this Chen family. "Fellow Taoist Zhou, Senior Zhou, let's go inside and eat and chat. I have prepared a banquet for the two of you, and I'd like to invite the two of you to enjoy them." Hearing this, Zhou Mucheng nodded noncommittally. Chen Xianhe quickly led the way forward. "Wait until everyone is seated in the box of Tsueyu building. A few rounds of spirit wine and delicious food." Everyone finally got to know each other a little. "Chen Xianhe. The younger generation is here." Chen Xianhe lowered his body and responded respectfully. "I heard that your Chen family has been selling first-order low-grade magic tools in the Sangxiafang market for the past year. Do you have so many artifact refiners in your family?" heard this question. Chen Xian's hand holding the wine glass trembled slightly, his eyes turned red, and he couldn't help covering his face and weeping. Seeing this scene, Chen Daoxian on the side couldn't help but stunned. He never imagined that Uncle 13 still has this ability, and his acting skills are also very good. "Senior, you don't know something," Chen Xianhe wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes, and said with red eyes, "I, a cultivator of the Chen family, a person with poor aptitude, will automatically give up his practice when he reaches the 3rd level of qi refining, and specialize in refining flying swords for the family. Because they only concentrate on learning one method of refining magic weapons, they can train such a magician in a few years." Hearing this explanation, Zhou Mucheng was suddenly moved. "What do you mean, you cultivators of the Chen family gave up your practice and concentrated on refining weapons to earn spirit stones for your family?" "Exactly," said, tears flowed in Chen Xian's eyes again, "Pity my Chen family's children who sacrificed so much for the family shop is still coveted by wicked people in Sangxiafang City. How unreasonable. This is Guang'an Mansion, how can such wicked people be allowed to be presumptuous?" Zhou Mucheng hadn't spoken yet, but his son Zhou Xiliang was filled with righteous indignation first. Zhou Mucheng glanced at his son, and immediately, Zhou Xiliang shrank his neck, drank a glass of spirit wine in embarrassment, and dared not speak again. Chen Daoxian was completely stunned at this moment. Chen Xian's acting skills are really good. If he hadn't understood the real situation, I would now wonder if the Chen family cultivator was really so miserable. For the sake of the family, he gave up his practice and concentrated on earning spiritual stones for the family. According to Chen Xian's statement, every spiritual stone earned by the Chen family was exchanged for the path of a cultivator within the clan, which was indeed miserable. Zhou Mucheng nodded, the behavior of the Chen family cultivator is indeed admirable. As for the villain you call, as long as fellow Taoists stay in Guang'an Mansion for one day, my Zhou family will guarantee that your Chen family shop will be safe for one day. Hearing this, Chen Xianhe became anxious. He didn't want this guarantee. Even if the Mo family and the others lose their minds, it is impossible for them to start operations in Guang'an Mansion. What he wanted was for Zhou Muqing to be able to contribute to the passage from Shuanghu Island to Guang'an Prefecture. As the deacon of the Zhou family patrol, Zhou Muqing's power is actually very great, because he is in charge of a spirit void battleship. As long as Zhou Muqing can cooperate with the Chen family, Chen Xianhe can set up a bureau and put all the people of the Mo family in. Not only that. After this incident, he only needs to publicize this incident, and he will be able to rip the tiger's skin off Zhou's family. At least, until outsiders didn't know the relationship between the Chen family and the Zhou family, they didn't dare to do anything to the Chen family. And this time is precisely the growth time that the Chen family needs most. The Chen family has just given birth to nearly 10,000 newborns. When this group of children grow up, the Chen family will send another foundation-building cultivator. Even if the Chen family has a firm foothold in Guang'an Prefecture. In order to do all this, the Chen family must have enough spiritual stones and even personal connections. Because you need spiritual stones to buy foundation establishment pills, you need to use the second-order spiritual veins to break through the foundation establishment period. One way or another. During this time, the Chen family needs to find a backer, even if this backer is not real. This is what Chen Xianhe said by taking advantage of the situation. Chapter 77. Hearing Zhou Muqing's high-sounding remarks, Chen Xianhe kept saying yes, and he praised how stable and prosperous Guang'an Prefecture was under the Zhou family's governance. Immediately afterwards, Chen Xian's old face collapsed again. Oh, what a pity. What's the pity for fellow Taoist Chen? Zhou Muqing drank a glass of spirit wine and said calmly. It's a pity that in the Battle of Zhenangguan 50 years ago, my Chen family killed 12 monks, so that the monks in the family withered. Who knows? Before Chen Xianhe finished speaking, Zhou Muqing put the wine glass on the table, stared at Chen Xianhe intently, and said, Your Chen family is you lie from the Battle of Zhenangguan. Could it be senior? Chen Xianhe looked up at the other party, surprised. Zhou Muqing nodded, his tone softened a little, and said in a low voice, I was in Zhenangguan back then. Hear this. Chen Xianhe stood up suddenly, clenched his right fist and hammered his chest, gave a military salute to the other party, and said solemnly, Chen Xianhe, the soldier of Zhenangguan, I have seen the elder of the pawn. Hearing this familiar name, Zhou Muqing couldn't come back to his senses for a long time. That battle was really bad. As the largest clan in Guang'an Prefecture, the Zhou family suffered great losses in this battle. As far as Zhou Muqing knew, the younger brother of Zhou Mubai, the young patriarch of the Zhou family, was damaged in this battle that year. As you can imagine, how much the Zhou family hates the Yi family. Now that he heard that Chen Xianhe was actually a sergeant who survived the Battle of Zhenangguan, Zhou Muqing was able to get close to him. Chen Daoxian clearly felt that the sense of estrangement between Zhou Muqing and Chen's uncle and nephew gradually disappeared. When he talked to Chen Xianhe, he no longer held a high shelf. Occasionally chat about some interesting stories of the two serving in Zhenangguan, and they will laugh. Chen Daoxian was a little confused at the moment. He didn't know whether his 13th uncle was showing his true feelings or acting. If this is also acting, then Chen Xian's acting skills are terrible. Brother Chen, Zhou Muqing waved his hand and said with a blushing face, I didn't expect the two of us to have such a fate. Since you and I used to be sergeants of Zhenangguan, you don't need to be around the bush when you talk about it. If you have something, please speak bluntly. Hear this. Chen Xianhe was ecstatic. He cupped his hands and said, Brother Zhou, to be honest, I do have something to ask for. Then, Chen Xianhe described the difficulties faced by the Chen family to the other party in detail. Who knows that Zhou Muqing's face flushed with anger after hearing Qin Ziyan's words. These soft don't dare to fight on the battlefield of Iron Kingdom, but they dare to rob your Qin family's cargo ship. Zhou Muqing was obviously a little drunk. Brother Qin, don't worry, if the Mo family doesn't come, don't worry, if they really dare to kill you halfway, I will report it to Qianyuan Jianzong, and take his Mo family and destroy the family. These words, Zhou Muqing said murderously. Even Qin Daoxian on the side felt a chill. Hearing this assurance, Qin Xianhe was overjoyed, and hurriedly said, "It's all up to Brother Zhou to help." "Well, come on, do it." "Okay, do it." The two drank. After drinking this glass of wine, Qin Xianhe gave Qin Daoxian a wink. Qin Daoxian understood, quietly took out a jade box from the storage bag, and smiled at Zhou Xiliang next to him. "Brother Zhou, you and I hit it off. I bought a little gadget not long ago, and I asked Brother Zhou to accept it with a smile." "What?" Zhou Xiliang was listening to his father and Qin Xian, who often bribes him, calling him brothers and sisters 1 second before, and the next second he was given gifts in public, so he couldn't help feeling a little overwhelmed. "Brother Qin, what do you mean?" Zhou Muqing put down the wine glass, straightened his face, and made a dissatisfied expression. "Brother Zhou, it's a good thing that your children and I are willing to get close, isn't it?" Zhou Xiliang looked at his father eagerly, and when he nodded, he couldn't wait to take the jade box. Seeing his son's unpromising appearance, Zhou Muqing felt a little dissatisfied in his heart. Fortunately, Zhou Xiqing finally did not open the jade box in public, which saved him a bit of face. This feast, the two sides drank for more than 2 hours, and then gave up. Room. Zhou Muqing and Qin Xianhe chatted a lot about Zenangwen's past, and the two also had a taste of seeing each other late. After leaving, Zhou Muqing and his son were walking on the streets of the core business district in a cloud-treading beast car. Looking at the moonlit night sky outside the car, Zhou Xiliang couldn't hold back his curiosity. He quickly took out the jade box Qin Daoxian gave him from the storage bag, and unlocked the restriction on the jade box. As the jade box was opened, aura flashed in the car. "Ha! Such a big handwriting." Seeing the treasure in the jade box, Zhou Xiliang immediately exclaimed. Zhou Muqing heard the sound and looked over, and his pupils shrank slightly. What is in this jade box is a small gift for Zhou Xiliang. It is clearly a big gift for him, Zhou Muqing. Inside the jade box, 10 water spirit beads lay quietly inside, 5 second-order water spirit beads, and 5 first-order water spirit beads. The 5 first-order water spirit beads are estimated to be gifts for Zhou Xiliang, but for Zhou Muqing, they are of little value. But the value of 5 second-order water spirit beads is amazing. The last time Qin Daoxian went to Zhou's auction house, the starting price for a second-order water spirit bead was 1,000 spirit stones. If these 5 water spirit beads were taken to the auction house, they could be sold for more than 6,000 spirit stones. Even if Zhou Muqing could buy it at the family's internal price, it would cost 5,000 spirit stones. Even for him, a late foundation building cultivator, this gift is not invaluable. Think for a moment. Zhou Muqing could know that in order to give this gift, the Qin family might have taken out all their family members. You must know that the profits of first-order low-grade magic tools are extremely low. Those special craftsmen of the Qin family don't know how long it takes to earn so much profit. Thinking of this, he felt better about Qin Xianhe in his heart. The clan is united, the patriarch has courage, and there is an excellent junior like Qin Daoxian. Zhou Muqing had a hunch that if the Qin family could survive this disaster, there would be a place for his Qin family in Guang'an Prefecture in the future. Think of this. He took 5 second-order water spirit beads from the jade box, put them in his storage bag, and said, "These 5 water spirit beads belong to the father." Hearing this, Zhou Xiqing's young face suddenly collapsed. See him like this. Zhou Muqing shook his head, threw a storage bag over, and said with a smile, Okay, there are 1,000 spirit stones in it, why don't I buy yours? After speaking, he warned again, you have to save some flowers, you know. Don't know how to run to the hook bar all day long. After speaking, he fondly rubbed his son's head. Okay. I see, thank you Dad. Zhou Siqing happily accepted 1,000 spirit stones and said happily. He dealt with this on his lips, but in his heart he thought that he should find a few good brothers of his own to spend a good time tomorrow. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian returned to the Hongyin Feijian store. The two looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief, and then the two laughed. It's done. Chen Xianhe did not expect that he was so lucky to meet a colleague from Zhenengguan 50 years ago. Chen Daoxian nodded heavily, and the big stone that was pressing on his heart was completely put down. With Zhou Miqing's help, the Mo family can't come if they don't come. If they dare to come, they will die without a burial. Laughed for a while. Chen Xianhe restrained his laughter and said coldly, the next step is to let the Mo family get into the game we arranged. Uncle 13, what are you going to do? You listen to me. Chapter 78. It was the second day after Chen Xianhe and Zhou Miqing reached a deal. The Hongyin Feijian shop in Sangxiafang City has suddenly increased the number of Feijian sales. Over the past year or so, the Hongyin Feijian store only selects one lucky buyer every day to purchase the store's Feijian. Hunger marketing has been working for more than a year. But it's not enough to greedy the loose cultivators in the loose cultivator market who couldn't buy flying swords. But today, the Hongyin Feijian store has changed from normal. They wantonly sell goods in the scattered repair shop market, and all the magic tools sold are the same style of first-order low-grade flying swords. Compared with other magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City, the only advantage of Hongyin Feijian shop is that their Feijian is all new, not second-hand. This is simply too tempting for loose cultivators who have no channels to buy low-level magical tools. Every day when the store is open, the Hongyin Feijian shop is always surrounded by loose cultivators. It's even more exaggerated than when the lottery was originally drawn. When the Chen family's uncle and nephew saw this scene, they had to urgently adjust their sales strategy. Although they brought more than 1,500 flying swords on this trip. But at this rate, it is estimated that it will be sold out in 3 days. They wantonly sell it to force the Mo family and other small families, not simply to sell flying swords. At this point, both of them are very awake. Just after Chen Xianhe changed the supply of Feijian to 50 per day, the frenzy of the loose cultivators not only did not ease. Instead, it got crazier over time. However, the uncle and nephew of the Chen family wanted the fanaticism of the loose cultivators. The more fanatical they are, the more bleak the business of other magic weapon shops in Sangxiafang City will be. As a result, the small family headed by the Mo family couldn't help but want to attack the Chen family. Really? It was on the 10th day when the Hongyin Feijian shop went out to sell. The Mo family finally couldn't bear it anymore and took the initiative to come to the door. Hongyin Feijian shop. After a day's business, Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian were about to close their doors. At this moment, 3 monks dressed in luxurious clothes took the initiative to come to the door. The leader was a cultivator in his early 50s. He looked energetic, and his whole body revealed a harmonious charm. The two behind him, one of whom was in his early 30s, with a white face and no beard, were dressed in purple Taoist robes, and their cultivation had reached the 9th level of qi refining. The other, who seemed to be a loose cultivator, was wrapped in black robes and could not see clearly. These 3 people are the head of the Mo family, Mo Changsheng, and the cultivator of the Mo family, Mo Yuqing, and a loose cultivator they found. Chen Xianhe didn't know Mo Changsheng, but he was very impressed with Mo Yuqing, the man behind him who once said he would buy their store Feijian. It's you. Chen Xianhe recognized the other party at a glance, and said vigilantly, what do you want? Young Taoist Chen, right? Without waiting for Mo Yuqing to speak, the head of the Mo clan took the lead and said, "Introduce myself first. I am the Mo clan head, Mo Changsheng. You must have heard of Mo's Treasures Pavilion, fellow Taoist Chen." "It's my Mo's property." Qin Xianhe nodded slowly. "I've heard of it, but I don't know what your friend is here for." "If it's the same thing last time, I advise fellow Taoists not to waste your time. My Chen family will never hand over the sales channels to others." Hearing this, Mo Changsheng's face changed at first, but then he calmed down again, and said with a smile, "Fellow Taoist Chen, you and I are both members of the Guang'an House Qi refining clan, and we should be watching and helping each other, so why be so aggressive?" "Am I being aggressive?" Qin Xianhe laughed angrily at his words. "I don't know who made it clear last time that he wanted to forcibly buy my Chen's Feijian shop. Let me ask, is it your Mo family being aggressive, or my Chen family being aggressive?" Hearing this, Mo Changsheng smiled and said, "It's all members of my Mo family who are ignorant. I am here to apologize to fellow Taoist Chen for him." Having said that, Mo Changsheng gave Qin Xianhe a deep bow. "Humph." Qin Xianhe tilted his head. "Since the misunderstanding between us has been eliminated, let's talk about new cooperation. What do you think about fellow Taoist Chen? What do you want to talk about?" Qin Xianhe wondered. "Friend Chen, can you take a step to speak?" "Okay." Qin Xianhe thought about it, winked at Qin Daoxian, and nodded in agreement. The two entered the store and sat opposite each other. After serving Mo Changsheng tea, Qin Xianhe opened his mouth and said, "I don't know what the cooperation mentioned by Dao Yu Mo is referring to." "Yes," Mo Changsheng smiled and said, "What do you think about the low-end magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture?" "Very expansive." Qin Xianhe thought about it. "That's right." Mo Changsheng clapped his palm and agreed, "My Mo family thinks so too. However, why don't my fellow practitioners in the Sangxiafang City buy many magical implements every year in my other magical implement shops?" Before waiting for Qin Xianhe to answer, Mo Changsheng took the initiative to say, "The reason is that the scattered practitioners in the scattered cultivator market do not look down on the second-hand magic tools in our hands. Dao Yu Chen, you are different. You have an artifact refiner who can refine magic tools, while my Mo family has been rooted in the scattered workshop for more than 100 years and has a lot of sales experience and complex interpersonal relationships. You and I have joined forces, so why not make it bigger and stronger?" When Qin Xianhe heard this, he seemed a little moved. Qin Daoxian, who was on the side, scolded angrily, "Listening to what you mean, what's the difference between buying my Chen's Feijian shop? Are my Chen family all fools, and can't even sell magic weapons?" "Yes." Qin Xianhe suddenly showed an expression of sudden realization. That expression seems to say, "I almost fell for your old boy." After finishing the matter, he gave Qin Daoxian a reassuring look. Seeing that Qin Xianhe was about to agree, but was disturbed by Qin Daoxian halfway through, Mo Chang's face was flushed with anger, and the anger he had been suppressing since entering the store could no longer be concealed. He gradually turned a cold face, glanced at Qin Daoxian, and then said coldly, "If I remember correctly, your Chen's shop has always been the only one Qin Daoxian, right? Why is there an extra junior today?" Hearing this, Qin Xianhe immediately showed a stern expression and said, "What do you mean by that? I warn you, this is Guang'an Mansion, don't you mess around." Saying that, he touched the storage bag with his right hand. It seems like he's about to strike out. Seeing his bluffing expression, Mo Changsheng felt relieved. He smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Chen has been thinking too much. This is Guang'an Mansion. How could I be fooling around?" Before Qin Xian could breathe a sigh of relief, Mo Changsheng continued, "It's just. The journey from Guang'an Prefecture to your Chen's Shuanghu Island is a long one. It's hard to say whether there will be accidents along the way. Hear this threat." Qin Daoxuan's face flushed with anger, and he shouted loudly, "Old man, you dare to threaten me? Who knows that Mo Changxing doesn't care about a cultivator on the 7th level of qi refining in Qindaoxian district. In his eyes, although Qin Xianhe Xiuwei is one level lower, he is the one who is in charge of the Qin family. As for Qin Daoxian, he is a descendant of the Qin family, and he is very happy and angry. It can be seen that his temperament is extremely poor, and it is difficult to become a great weapon. For his words, Mo Changxing didn't bother to answer at all. Hearing Mo Changsheng's threat, Qin Ziyan's face was gloomy and uncertain. A long time. He raised his head and said firmly, I believe that there is a patrol of the Zhou family, and your Mo family has not yet dared to attack our uncle and nephew. Hearing this, Mo Changxing stared at Qin Xianhe intently. Qin Xianhe looked at him without giving up. A long time. Mo Changxing laughed, got up and said, You don't need to mind Mo Mao's joking words, fellow Taoist Qin. After he finished speaking, he took the 2 monks behind him and turned to leave. Until the Mo family goes away. Qin Daoxian closed the door, placed a soundproof formation, and said with a smile, Uncle 13, how was my performance just now? Too exaggerated. Qin Xianhe commented with a smile. Chapter 79. The two laughed for a while. Qin Xianhe said sternly, I was still wondering why other small families didn't take action against our store, but the Mo family took the lead. At first, I thought it was Mo's Treasure's pavilion that was most affected by our shop, but now it seems that it is not the only reason. Uncle 13, what do you mean? Qin Xianhe nodded. Just now, the head of the Mo family, Mo Changsheng, has reached the perfect state of qi refining, and it is obvious that the foundation is imminent. Moreover, he has reached the age where he has to build a foundation. If not, the Mo family would not be in such a hurry to attack us. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian thought about it carefully. This time the Mo family attacked the Qin family too hastily. It stands to reason that a family that has been inherited for hundreds of years, even a qi refining family, should not be so reckless. After all, the Qin family is also a qi refining family. Before the Mo family could fully understand the strength of the Qin family, they hurriedly took action, which seemed a little stunned. In this way, there is only one reason, and that is that the Mo family can't wait. They can't wait to investigate whether the Qin family has a background, and can't wait to investigate the strength of the Qin family. In other words, they were sure that they were not afraid of the Qin family's revenge after the business of the Qin family's magic weapon shop was destroyed. What can give them this confidence is that the head of the Mo family, Mo Changsheng, is about to build the foundation. The Mo family has a foundation-building cultivator in charge. As a new foundation-building family, it is naturally not afraid of revenge from a qi refining family like the Qin family on Shuanghu Island. By the time, the weak Qin family had no choice but to break their teeth and swallow them. Speaking of which, Qin Xianhe smiled again. If before, I was only 50% sure that the Mo family would kill us on our way back, then now, I'm at least 90% sure. Mo Changsheng will definitely take the bait. Qin Xianhe was decisive. Out of the Hongyin Feijian store, Mo Changsheng had a livid face along the way and remained silent. Mo Yuqing and the black robe loose cultivator did not dare to disturb him when they saw him like this. The atmosphere of the team was a little dull. Wait until everyone returns to Mo's treasure pavilion. After Mo Changsheng instructed Mo Yuqing to close the door of the shop, everyone went upstairs to talk. Friend Jia, Mo Changsheng cupped his hands towards the black-robed loose cultivator. I wonder if your spirit beast can remember the aura of the two of you, heard. The black-robed loose cultivator took out a fluffy, pointed nose and short-tailed little beast from the spirit beast bag, and made a short and strange sound from his mouth, as if he was talking with the little one. A long time. The black-robe loose cultivator raised his head, Patriarch Mo, my little treasure told me that it has remembered the breath of the two people just now, within a radius of 5,000 miles, they don't want to escape the pursuit of the 1,000-mile tracker. That's good. Mo Changsheng nodded, don't worry, fellow Taoist Jia, after this is done, I promise you that the 1,000 spiritual stones will not be less than a penny. Hey, of course I can trust Patriarch Mo. Hearing the promise of 1,000 spirit stones, He Pao Sanxiu immediately showed a hint of greed in his eyes. See the black robe loose repair leave. Mo Yuqing took 2 steps forward and hesitated. Patriarch, do you really want to give him 1,000 spiritual stones? Hearing this, Mo Changsheng glanced at him, and then looked out the window. Intercepting a comrade is a serious crime of looting a family and annihilating a family. The reward for 1,000 spirit stones? Ha! In this world, only dead people can keep secrets. Hearing this, Mo Yuqing was shocked. After Mo Changsheng said these words, his face softened again, and said, have you brought all the people I asked you to bring? The Patriarch, there are 17 monks in the clan at the late stage of qi refining and above, all of them are here. Very good. Mo Changsheng's eyes showed a killing intent. After the Chen family sells the magic weapon, they will definitely buy a large amount of spiritual ore and return to Shuanghu Island to refine the flying sword. As long as they intercepted their cargo ship halfway, without this batch of spiritual ore, the Chen family would definitely be at a loss. And after we went to the black market to sell these batches of spiritual ores, there would be enough resources for me to build a foundation. At that time, how could my Mo family fear the revenge of a mere qi refining family? It seemed that he was comforting Mo Yuqing, and he seemed to be comforting himself. Mo Changsheng muttered. Intercept the comrades. Once discovered, in Wangxinghai, it is a big crime to loot and exterminate the family. Especially the Mo family's behavior of intercepting and killing comrades. If Qianyuan Jianzong didn't care about this kind of evil, then everyone would follow suit, and Wangxinghai would be in chaos long ago. Of course. Even with the control of Qianyuan Jianzong, there are still many loose cultivators who choose to take risks. It's just that it's rare for family cultivators to intercept others halfway. Because the cultivation resources possessed by family cultivators are much more superior than those of loose cultivators, they should not take risks. The scattered cultivators were different. They lacked cultivation resources, and they had no worries about being alone. If they didn't do well, they would do something to kill their fellow practitioners. As for being discovered, the big deal is to run away. Anyway, they have no spiritual veins, and they are not burdened by ordinary clansmen. With storage bags on their shoulders, the world is home. Back then, the Sun brothers who set up the trap of the immortal mansion and prepared to kill Chen Daoxian were typical representatives of this type of loose cultivator. Of course. With the high-pressure policy of the Qianyuan sword sect and the battlefield opened up by the Izumo kingdom for loose cultivators to obtain cultivation resources, there are fewer and fewer loose cultivators who kill their fellow practitioners in Wangxinghai. Because they found out. The risks and rewards of killing fellows are not proportional. It's easy to kill a loose cultivator, but the loose cultivator is often more than a clean face, and it doesn't gain much if he kills it, but it makes a fuss. And intercepting the family's children, the risk is much greater. Who knows what kind of cards the children of the family hold in their hands? If it doesn't work, the boat will capsize, and it's not certain who kills who. This kind of loose cultivator intercepts and kills fellow practitioners only to seek money, not to seek death. After weighing the pros and cons, it is better to go to the battlefield of Izumo to fight for a future. This is also an important reason why the Sun brothers gave up killing Chen Daoxian and chose to go to the battlefield of Izumo. The next few days. There was a strange scene in the magic weapon market in Sangxiafang City. The magic tools in the Hangyin Feijian store are in short supply, while other magic tools stores opened by loose cultivators or small families are very busy. But everyone didn't make any statement, and seemed to be waiting for an early bird to break the deadlock. However, everyone is unwilling to be this early bird. Or they know that someone is already in the early stage. Just 1 month. Hongyin Feijian shop sold Feijian crazily, and finally sold 1,500 Feijian within a month. This time, the Hongyin Feijian shop was completely popular among the scattered cultivators at the bottom of Sangxiafang City. It can be said that it has reached the point where no one knows it. The big family turned a blind eye to this scene, while the small family in Guang'an Mansion and some shallow foundation building families began to inquire about the origin of the Qin family on Shuanghu Island. To this scene, Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxian had expected it. Since the low-key sale of Feijian is still coveted by others, it is completely high-profile. It's just that at the same time of high profile, the Qin family must kill the chickens to show the monkeys and establish a prestige. And the Mo family who jumped out actively was the chicken selected by the Qin family. Chapter 80. Guang'an Port. Watching a truckload of spiritual ore transporting the Shang Canglong cargo ship, Qin Daoxian frowned and said, Uncle 13, do you think the Mo family will be fooled? When things came to an end, Qin Daoxian would inevitably worry about gains and losses. The Qin family was so painstakingly arranged that if the Mo family didn't come, they would have nothing to draw water from the bamboo basket. Qin Xianhe was much more confident. He patted Qin Daoxian on the shoulder and said with a smile, Don't worry, they will definitely come. You are still young, and you don't understand the desire of a chi-refining cultivator who is nearly 60 years old. Qin Xianhe still had something to say. At the beginning, he had also been so eager or desperate. Qin Daoxian's aptitude is amazing, and the Qin family has no shortage of resources now. For him, building a foundation in the future is a sure thing. Of course he couldn't understand how desperate and crazy those people who couldn't build a foundation, or who were just one step away from building a foundation, would be. Southwest waters of Wangxinghai. A fleet sailed on the rippling sea. In addition to the supplies purchased by the Qin family, the Cangyun led by also carried a new batch of female slaves from Izumo. It's just that the female slaves of the Izumo country bought this time are far less than the first time Qin Daoxian bought. The reason? It's not that the Qin family has no money to buy it, but that the young female slaves in Guang'an Prefecture are almost sold out. In addition, the resource transport ships on the front line did not come. The price of young female slaves in Guang'an Prefecture has remained high during this period, and it has even reached the terrifying price of 2 spirit stones apiece. With such an expensive price, the Qin family is naturally unwilling to be taken advantage of. In addition, the young and beautiful female slaves have basically been selected, and Qin Daoxian only purchased more than 1,000 female slaves from the Izumo country this time. Have to say. For more than a year. The ordinary male clan of the Qin family on Shuanghu Island has been in happiness and pain. In the beginning, they felt happy, and then they became a little miserable. Qin Daoxian found more than once that when the adult men in the clan usually walked, many of them covered their waists with their hands. The two stood on the deck of the Cangyun. Qin Xianhe glanced at the cabin behind him and hesitated. Daoxian, are we going to suspend the purchase of female slaves from the Izumo country? If this goes on, I'm afraid the clan's body won't be able to support it. Qin Xianhe persuaded while stroking his beard. Hearing this, Qin Xianhe glanced at the cabin and said coldly, It doesn't matter, I bought a lot of supplements for the clan this time, it will be fine. Hearing this, Qin Xianhe almost broke his beard. He is a little fortunate now that he is a monk, not an ordinary Qin clan. While the two were chatting, ahead, a huge ship faintly approached them. The speed of this giant ship was so fast that it only took half a cup of tea to approach the Qin family's fleet. Chen's uncle and nephew ordered the fleet to avoid. Who knows that the other party seems to have identified the Qin family's fleet, and is determined to force the Qin family's fleet over. See this scene. Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe had a faint guess in their hearts. The two of them were swept away. As expected, he found that there were 20 chi-refining cultivators on the other side's boat. Also, except for the black-robed loose cultivator, everyone else's cultivation was in the late stage of qi refining. In other words, among these Mo family cultivators, even the worst one had reached the 7th level of qi refining. Why did the Mo family run in front of us? Chen Daoxian looked at Chen Xianhe, puzzled. Chen Xianhe shook his head and said solemnly, "There are many strange ways of tracking in the cultivation world. It is not surprising that they can wait for us halfway. Obviously, Chen Xianhe has seen some wonderful tracking methods." After saying that, he warned again, "Be careful later, beware that the Mo family cultivator's dog jumps over the wall and hurts you." Hearing this, Chen Daoxian pursed his lips. He is not worried that the other party will hurt him. To be honest, Chen Daoxian himself is a little confused about how strong he is now. But there is one thing he can be sure of, that is, his strength is absolutely invincible among the cultivators in the qi refining period. Practice till now. Chen Daoxian only learned 2 swordsmanships in total, wind-chasing swordsmanship and rain-covering swordsmanship. In general, when the outer disciples of Qianyuan sword sect are in the qi refining period, they must cultivate one of the first-order sword arts such as wind-chasing sword art and rain-covering sword art to the realm of mastery, in order to be considered qualified. And inner disciples, in addition to the spiritual root requirements, must cultivate 2 or more first-order sword arts to the realm of great achievement. In other words, even the Qianyuan sword sect would not force the inner disciple to cultivate the first-order sword art to the perfect state, because this requirement is too difficult for disciples in the qi refining stage. If there is any inner disciple who cultivates the first-order sword art to the perfect state during the qi refining period, he will become a candidate for the Qianyuan sword sect in an instant. As long as you advance to foundation establishment and comprehend sword intent, you will be able to rank as a direct disciple. Zhou Mubai of Guang'an House, if he was born in Qianyuan sword sect, he should be able to become a direct disciple. Chen Daoxian completed his wind-chasing sword art in 3 months, and then spent another 3 months completing his rain-covering sword art. After a full 4 months, I was stuck on the fusion of wind-chasing sword art and rain-covering sword art. Until a year ago, Guanhating realized the Tao, comprehended the profound meaning of chasing the wind and covering the rain sword art, and from then on, the level of Kendo entered a new world. Since then, a full year, Chen Daoxian practiced on Shuanghu Island every day, and had an epiphany every 10 days. Every time he had an epiphany, his Kendo level improved. After a year of epiphany, Chen Daoxian didn't know what his current Kendo realm had reached. He only knew that if the current self was against the self from a year ago, he could instantly kill him with a single sword. He faintly sensed that his Kendo realm was in front of a new threshold again. If you cross the past, it will be a whole new world. How about this? There are no ancestors left in the Chen family to guide him. He didn't even know how to divide the realm of Kendo. He only knew that Zhou Mubai realized the sword intent during the foundation building period and became a sword cultivator. Sword intent should be a description of the realm of Kendo. Chen Daoxian didn't know if he understood the sword intent or not, whether he was a sword cultivator or not. However, according to the rumors, he should not have comprehended the sword intent. Because in the legend, after comprehending the meaning of the sword, the monk will thoroughly temper the monk's true essence, transforming the true essence into the invincible sword essence. This is also the reason why the sword cultivator is the first in the same rank to attack, and can even fight beyond the ranks. Contemplation. The other party's ship had stopped not far in front of the Chen family's fleet. See you. The Chen family also had to stop the fleet and wait here. Next moment, 20 monks rose into the sky, rode against the wind, and flew towards the Chen family fleet. The one headed by was the head of the Mo family, Mo Changsheng, whom the two had only met 20 days ago. At this moment, Mo Changsheng was looking down at Chen's uncle and nephew, with a sneer on the corner of his mouth, and said, "We haven't seen you for a few days, are the two fellow Taoists safe?" Chapter 81, See This Scene. Chen Xianhe and Chen Daoxian looked at each other with a faint smile on the corners of their mouths. Chen Xianhe took a step forward and reasoned with Mo Changsheng, "What is the purpose of Mo Daoyu stopping my uncle and nephew behind?" Chen Daoxian secretly held a lavender shadow stone in his hand to record the evidence. "Ha ha ha," Mo Changsheng laughed wildly. "Chen Xianhe, don't talk nonsense. Today I will ask you one last time, Chen's magic weapon shop, will you hand it over?" Hear this straightforward threat. Chen Ziyan's face turned pale, and he said nervously, "Daoist friend Mo, don't make a mistake, I warn you, I have already notified the Zhou family's patrol fleet that they are on their way. You have to think about it clearly, intercepting and killing your comrades is a serious crime of raiding your family and destroying your family. Do you want your Mo family to be raided and wiped out?" Hearing the 4 words of slaughtering the family and exterminating the family, Mo Changsheng's eyes faintly revealed a trace of fear. Obviously. Intercepting Chen Ziyan's uncle and nephew halfway, he was also under a lot of psychological pressure. After all, for every cultivator living in Wangxinghai, the prestige of Qianyuan sword sect is too great. Be stubborn, court death. Mo Changsheng felt a little uneasy in his heart, and immediately ordered the Mo family cultivator behind him, "Go, herd." The Mo family cultivators dispersed immediately and surrounded Chen Ziyan's uncle and nephew's Zhangyan number. This time, Chen Ziyan's uncle and nephew really had no way to go to heaven and could not escape when they went to sea. Seeing that Chen Xianhe wanted to speak, Chen Daoxian stepped forward and said with a smile, "Uncle 13, I have recorded the evidence." Saying that, he raised the shadow stone in his hand. Hearing this, Chen Xianhe, who was going to perform again, suddenly shut up and instructed, "Be careful with everything, the Zhou family should be nearby, you just need to hold them for a while." "Uncle 13, you can rest assured," Chen Daoxian said, and took out Feishue Qingying Erjian from the storage bag. High in the air, a spirit void battleship is hidden in the clouds. Inside the Lingshu battleship, in front of Zhou Mucheng, he performed a circular mirror technique. Inside the mirror, at the moment, the screen of the Mo family cultivator intercepting the Chen family uncle and nephew is playing. Seeing this, Zhou Mucheng's face turned cold and he ordered, "Let's go down." "Yes. Lord Deacon, on the sea." After the Mo family surrounded Chen's uncle and nephew, they took out the magical instruments from the storage bags one after another. Looking at the styles of their magical instruments, most of them used flying swords. Only less than 3 people used other styles of magic weapons. "Kill!" Mo Changsheng shouted and took the lead in killing Chen Daoxian. But next second, within a radius of 100 zhang, the sea suddenly started to rain, causing Mo Changsheng to be stunned for a moment. Just as he was stunned, a miserable cry entered his ears. "Ah! My hand!" When Mo Changsheng heard the sound, he saw a cultivator of the 7th level of qi refining in his Mo family, clutching his broken right hand and screaming in mid-air, his entire body shaky. The severe pain even made it very difficult for him to maintain the wind control technique. This rain. Mo Changsheng's pupils shrank slightly, not good. It's sword energy. Seeing this, he immediately exclaimed, "This rain is sword energy, everyone use the defensive amulet." After a big drink, Mo Changsheng first took out a golden talisman and activated it. Immediately, a golden light enveloped Mo Changsheng, making him feel a sense of security. The Golden Shield Talisman is a first-order high-grade spiritual talisman, which contains a defensive spell called the Golden Shield Technique. Among all the first-order spells, the Golden Shield Technique ranks among the best in defense, and it is nearly twice as strong as the Ice Talisman in Chen Daoxuan's hand. Generally speaking, after the cultivator used the Golden Shield, even a 9th-level qi refining cultivator would not be able to use it for a while. But Mo Changsheng was horrified to find out The spherical golden cover constructed by the golden cover technique has become precarious under the erosion of the rain sword energy, and it seems that it will be torn apart by the opponent in the next second. Chen Daoxian saw that they had discovered the secret of the rain sword chi, so he simply stopped attacking, and went all out to display the chasing the wind and covering the rain sword art. In an instant, the 7 cultivators of the Mo family in the late stage of chi refining were beheaded by him on the spot. Dye the sea water red. But at the moment, Mo Changsheng didn't care about him at all. He couldn't even protect himself at the moment. Looking at the crumbling golden shield technique, Mo Changsheng swayed his heart, sacrificed the flying sword, and killed Chen Daoxian. He knew that the only way to break the game was to kill Chen Daoxian before the golden shield technique was broken. He now only hopes that Chen Daoxian's swordsmanship is unparalleled, but his defense and other abilities are insufficient. Otherwise, the 19 monks of their Mo family would all be buried here today. Of course Mo Changsheng would not have thought that he was hitting right, and he actually guessed Chen Daoxian's shortcomings. Compared to his attacking power, Chen Daoxian's defense is indeed his biggest weakness. In terms of defense methods, Chen Daoxian was not much better than ordinary cultivators in the late stage of chi refining. But sometimes offense is the best defense, like right now. Mo Changsheng's sword light tore through the rain curtain and killed Chen Daoxian. However, before his sword light approached Chen Daoxian 10 feet, a more terrifying white mark flashed away. The white mark pierced Mo Changsheng's sword light in an instant. Let his flying sword fly back with a whimper in an instant. This. Mo Changsheng looked at the scene in front of him in horror. Immediately, a sense of terror that he had never felt before attacked him. Fellow Taoist, Rao. Before the words were finished, the terrifying white mark was like piercing a bubble, tearing the spherical shield formed by the golden shield technique directly. Then the white mark turned. Mo Changsheng's head fell to the sea at the same time along with his remnant body. Clan, the patriarch is dead. The patriarch is dead. Not just anyone shouted such a sentence. Suddenly, the courage of the Mo family cultivator to resist was instantly disintegrated. Double reverse hit until now, speaking slowly is really fast. Except for Mo Changsheng, the other Mo family cultivators could not even tear through the rain screen sword energy, but their own defensive talismans were torn apart one after another. If it wasn't for Chen Daoxian's intentional retention of some strength in the end, the more than a dozen cultivators of the Mo family would probably all have to bleed on the spot. Even so, when Chen Daoxian put away the sword of chasing the wind and covering the rain, Mo Yuqing was the only one who was standing in the air with the Mo family cultivator intact. As for the others, they have either broken arms or missing a leg. Those who have broken arms and few legs are lucky, at least they still have one life. What's even worse is that the 11 Mo family cultivators who fell into the sea, all of them were cut into minced meat, and their deaths were extremely tragic. Mo Yuqing, who was already pale, was so frightened that his face was bloodless. He raised his finger and pointed at Chen Daoxian, trembling for a while, speechless. And the black-robed loose cultivator who led them to track them down was even more frightened and trembling all over. Chen Daoxian even smelled the smell of urine. This black-robed loose cultivator, a dignified cultivator, was actually scared to pee at this moment, which is rare. Chen Daoxian deliberately stayed these two people, otherwise, not to mention Mo Yuqing, just relying on the 5th level of qi refining in the black robe scattered repair area, it is estimated that even Chen Daoxian's sword energy could not be resisted. Not to mention standing here intact now. This battle, no, it should be said that this massacre, from beginning to end, only lasted for less than 3 breaths. Fight down. The head of the Mo family was in a different place, and the 11 Mo family cultivators were broken into pieces and scattered in the sea. The remaining 7 Mo family cultivators, except Mo Yuqing, were all seriously injured. Even though Mo Yuqing was not injured, but at the moment he was killed, the only thought in his mind now is to live. Only when he faced death, did he know that the most precious thing in this world was not money, but life. Right now. There was a roar in the sky, and a spirit void battleship cut through the sky and landed. Who knows? When Mo Yuqing saw the Lingshu battleship, it was like a drowning man had grabbed the last straw. He pointed at Qin Daoxian, and screamed in a hoarse and sharp voice, "Killed! He killed! Help! Senior, help!" Qin Daoxian. Chapter 82. Senior, help! Mo Yuqing wailed as he flew towards the Lingshu battleship, as if there were deadly evil spirits behind him. The huge spirit void battleship hovered above everyone's heads. Immediately, streams of light flew down from the spirit void battleship. It is the escape light of the base building cultivator. When Chen's uncle and nephew saw this scene, the old watched Mo Yuqing's performance at ease. Seeing that Qin Daoxian didn't stop him, Mo Yuqing felt a surge of ecstasy in his heart. Just as he was ecstatic, a flash of light swept across him, and then, an extremely cold face came into his eyes. "Senior, I am noisy." Zhou Muqing glanced coldly at Mo Yuqing, grabbed his neck with one hand, and held him in his hand as if he was carrying a chicken. With Zhou Muqing and others escaping and descending on the Cangyun, uncle and nephew of the Qin family hurried forward to greet him. "Brother Zhou. Uncle Zhou." Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxian hurried forward and bowed their hands, smiling happily. Seeing Qin Xianhe, especially when seeing Qin Daoxian, Zhou Muqing's eyes lit up slightly. Qin Daoxuan's performance against the Mo family cultivator just now, he can see it all. Zhou Muqing was surprised to find that when it comes to the realm of Kendo, the young junior in front of him is actually above him. This is a little scary. You must know that he is a cultivator on the 7th floor of the foundation building, and his cultivation base is a great realm higher than that of Qin Daoxian. Qin Daoxian started practicing swordsmanship in his mother's womb, and the level of Kendo is impossible to surpass him. The only explanation is that Qin Daoxian, like his Zhou family's arrogant Zhou Mubai, is a unique Kendo genius. If this kind of Kendo genius does not fall in the future, he is destined to become a famous person. Think of this. Zhou Muqing regenerated his intention to make good friends with his uncle and nephew of the Qin family. Especially Qin Daoxian is still so young. Regardless of his appearance, Zhou Muqing is only in his 40s, but in fact he has been practicing for more than 150 years. Even if the foundation building cultivator had 200 years of lifespan, Zhou Muqing didn't have much left. And Zhou Muqing knew in his heart that if he didn't have much chance, the possibility of him breaking through to the Purple Mansion in this lifetime is very slim. It would be fine if Zhou Muqing was alone. However, he had a son at an old age, and had a son Zhou Xiliang in the qi refining period. This made him have to think more about his son's future. Although the Zhou family covered the sky with only one hand in Guang'an Mansion, the Zhou family also had hundreds of thousands of cultivators. There are so many monks, and his son Zhou Xiliang's aptitude and temperament are not very good. Zhou Muqing was actually very worried about his son's future. Now that he is still alive, his son may not have any worries, but when he dies in the future, his son's situation will definitely be much more difficult than it is now. As a child of the Zhou family, Zhou Muqing knew in his heart that the Zhou family would never raise a waste with a lot of resources. But Zhou Muqing couldn't tell outsiders about these worries. In the eyes of outsiders, Zhou Muqing was a high-ranking deacon who was the patrol deacon in charge of the Zhou family's spirit void battleship. But who can understand the pain in his heart? Originally, he helped Qin Xianhe and Qin Daoxuan's uncle and nephew because of the second-order water spirit beads that Qin Xianhe bribed him and his former colleagues in Zenangwan. But today, after seeing Qin Daoxuan's terrifying kendo talent, Zhou Muqing completely changed his mind. He wants to befriend the Qin family, especially Qin Daoxian. For some reason, in Qin Daoxian, he vaguely seemed to see the shadow of the Zhou family Tianjiao, the Guang'an sword immortal Zhou Mubai, who had coerced the entire Guang'an mansion. Thoughts flipped. Zhou Muqing imprisoned Mo Yuqing's Dantian Qi Si and threw it on the deck of Cangyun. He cupped his hands and said, "Brother Chen, nephew, did Zhou come late?" "It's not too late, it's just right." Chen Xianhe cupped his hands and said with a smile. On the deck of the Cangyun, Mo Yuqing heard their conversation, and his heart gradually sank. At this time, he didn't know that their Mo family was overshadowed by Chen Xianhe. Thinking of this, he pointed at Chen Xianhe and yelled, "It's you! It's you, an old bastard, who is plotting against my Mo family. Old man, you are so cruel." Hear this shouting. Chen Daoxuan's face sank immediately, and he raised his hand and waved a burst of infuriating energy, knocked Mo Yuqing to the ground, and said coldly, "Keep your mouth clean." Mo Yuqing seemed to have been defeated by Chen Daoxian, and was slapped by him. Not only did he not dare to speak back, but he buried his head on the deck. Chen Xianhe was scolded by Mo Yuqing, but he was not angry, but smiled and said, "Don't blame me, I didn't give you Mo family a chance. I said before, I have informed the Zhou family patrol team, it is your Mo family who are obsessed with it, it will cause bitter fruit at this time, how can you blame me?" Me. Hearing these murderous words, Mo Yuqing was so angry that he was speechless. But then, he seemed to think of something again, and crawled over frantically, grabbed the corner of Zhou Muqing's clothes, and prayed, "Senior Zhou, please raise your hand and let go of my Mo family." Mo Yuqing paused. "Yes, my Mo family has spirit stones, we have more than 30,000 spirit stones, which are used by my patriarch to build the foundation, now I give you, all of them, I just ask you to spare my Mo clan. Family." Saying that, Mo Yuqing kept grabbing the ground with his head and kowtow frantically. Seeing his kneeling and begging for the sake of his clan, Chen Daoxian couldn't bear it a little, but then he became ruthless and turned his head to stop looking at him. Chen Xianhe and Zhou Muqing, who were present, were not human. Seeing Chen Daoxuan's expression, he knew what he was thinking. Zhou Muqing seemed to be reprimanding Mo Yuqing, and he seemed to be explaining it to Chen Daoxian, saying, "Humph. If everyone in Guang'an House follows your Mo family's example, and after intercepting the comrades and being exposed, bribing my Zhou family cultivator will be able to get away with it. How can there be peace in my huge Guang'an mansion?" After speaking, he paused, and a meaningful smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "Besides, where did your Mo family get more than 30,000 spirit stones? If you have so many spirit stones, why would you kill your fellows?" Hearing this, Chen Xianhe on the side hurriedly echoed, "Brother Zhou is very true, the Mo family is only poor and crazy to kill our uncle and nephew, how can they have more than 30,000 spirit stones, this son must be lying to you." Ha ha ha. Speaking, the two looked at each other and smiled, without saying anything. Chen Daoxian glanced at Uncle 13, and then at Zhou Muqing. He found that the monks in Wan Xinghai were more ruthless than the others. The Mo family is completely over this time. Thinking of this, he handed the photo stone to Zhou Muqing and said, "Uncle Zhou, this is the evidence that the Mo family intercepted our uncle and nephew." After taking Chen Daoxuan's photo-taking stone and releasing it for everyone to see, Zhou Muqing sneered, "What else do you have to say about your Mo family?" Hearing this, Mo Yuqing glanced at Chen Xian's uncle and nephew and Zhou Muqing, with a look of despair on his face, completely slumped to the ground. Chapter 83. Lord Deacon, the remaining 6 monks of the Mo family and this sneaky loose cultivator have all been captured. Please Lord Deacon for instructions. On the deck of the Cangyun. A cultivator in the early stage of foundation building led a team of cultivators from the Zhou family in the late stage of qi refining, and captured all the remaining cultivators of the Mo family who were seriously injured, including the intact black-robed loose cultivator. Zhou Muqing glanced at it, first the battleship back. Immediately, he pointed at Mo Yuqing and said, "Take him back with him." "Yes, Lord Deacon." After that, the cultivator in the early stage of foundation establishment picked up Mo Yuqing, who was lying on the ground, and returned to the spirit void battleship with the escape light. C. Zhou Muqing turned around, looked at Qin Daoxian and said, "Nephew, will you come with me to the Mo family to be a witness?" Hearing this, Qin Daoxian and Qin Xianhe looked at each other and said, "Then I will disturb Uncle Zhou." "Ha, don't bother, Brother Qin, then let's go ahead." "Brother Zhou, walk slowly, Daoxian, remember to obey your Uncle Zhou's orders on this trip." "Yes, Uncle 13. Qin Daoxian cupped his hands, and then, together with Zhou Muqing, flew to the spirit void battleship above everyone's heads. This is the second time Qin Daoxian has seen this behemoth. It's just that compared to the first time I saw it, this time Qin Daoxian was invited to board this battleship as a guest, and his feelings were naturally very different. The figures of Qin Daoxian and Zhou Muqing were as small as two mayflies in front of the Lingshu battleship. Enter the spirit void battleship. Qin Daoxian was shocked as if he had entered a fairy house. "This is aura." Qin Daoxian looked at Zhou Muqing in surprise. "Right." Zhou Muqing smiled and nodded. Each of the spirit void battleships has a spirit pivot pool, which can not only provide power for the spirit void battleship, but also provide spiritual energy for the monks inside the spirit void battleship. If you have to make an analogy, you can think of it as a spiritual vein that can move. Movable spiritual veins. The Qin family has just cultivated a first-order spiritual meridian. In his understanding, the spiritual meridian is built according to the terrain, and there is no reason to move it. But the spirit void battleship in front of him obviously shattered his imagination of the spirit veins. Perhaps this so-called Lingshu pool is probably equivalent to the nuclear-powered engine on the previous aircraft carrier. Qin Daoxian, who doesn't know the reason, can only make this analogy. This kind of large-scale war artifact is the foundation of the big forces. Generally, small families and small forces, not to mention refining and building it, even have no way to buy it. Zhou Muqing continued to introduce, my Zhou family's spirit void battleship can take 21 foundation building cultivators and 126 chi refining cultivators when fully loaded. Under the joint control, the strongest cultivators in the late period of Zifu can burst out with all their strength. One strike. Hearing this, Qin Daoxian's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. Immediately, seemingly thinking of something, Qin Daoxian cupped his hands and said, "Uncle Zhou, in this way, isn't this spirit void battleship comparable to a Zifu monk?" Hearing this, Zhou Muqing laughed dumbly, shook his head and said, "How can it be so simple? Although it can burst out the full blow of a cultivator of the Zifu, it does not have the flexibility of a cultivator of the Zifu." Zhou Muqing paused. "Have my nephew ever seen a puppet?" "Puppet?" Uncle Zhou is talking about the puppet beast produced by the Qianji Temple of Xianyunsu? "Yes, that's it," Zhou Muqing nodded. The Xianqing Dao League used a lot of the puppet beasts sold by the Qianji Temple in the battle against Maiwan Xinghai. If this kind of puppet beast can be compared to a cultivator, then Maiwan Xinghai would have been broken by the Xianqing Dao League long ago. This spirit warship is the same as the puppet beast. Most of the attacks it sends can only attack in one direction in advance, and the higher the intensity of the attack, the more difficult it is to change lanes in the middle. If the spirit void battleship attacks with all its strength, then its attack will never change in the middle. This kind of attack, not to mention the Zifu cultivator, even the foundation building cultivator can easily avoid it. Hearing this explanation, Qin Daoxian finally had a preliminary impression of this spirit void battleship. However, although the spirit void battleship can't be used to deal with monks, it has a use. Said, Zhou Muqing smiled mysteriously, "You can see the use of this later." Hearing this, Qin Daoxian was silent. After pondering for a moment, Zhou Muqing continued, "Nephew, I just saw that you fought against the Mo family cultivator. It seems that you haven't practiced defensive methods." Dao Xian is ashamed. "My Qin family is weak, and there is no refining method for the inheritance of defense methods and defense instruments. Hearing this, Zhou Muqing nodded his head. The refining methods of defensive spells and defensive instruments are indeed much more precious than offensive methods. As he said that, he took out a jade slip from the storage bag and handed it over. This is a first-order defense sword art, rock sword art, that I exchanged for my combat achievements in the Izumo country in the early years, and I give it to you. Uncle Zhou, how does this make it? Qin Daoxian was a little frightened. What? Your uncle and nephew can give my son Zhou Xiliang such a precious second-order water spirit bead. I gave you a first-order defense sword art, but you have to refuse. Are you looking down on your uncle Zhou? Zhou Muqing laughed. Daoxian dare not. Speaking of which, Qin Daoxian naturally couldn't refuse. It's just that he didn't know that Zhou Muqing's attitude towards him had changed so much, as if he had changed. Unless. Qin Daoxian had a vague guess in his heart, but he wasn't sure. Seeing that he didn't speak, Zhou Muqing said, "What's wrong?" Qin Daoxian shook his head, cupped his hands and said, Daoxian received this great favor without gong, and he was excited and a little scared. Hearing these words, Zhou Muqing said meaningfully, "Since you and my son Zhou Xiliang are like old friends at first sight, I will treat you like my own son and nephew. It is reasonable for an elder to give a gift to his son and nephew." Where does the fear come from? Qin Daoxian looked at him and instantly understood Zhou Muqing's implication. He cupped his hands and said, "Uncle Zhou, I will definitely get closer to brother Zhou from now on." Ha ha ha, okay, young people just need to get closer and closer. Zhou Muqing got Qin Daoxian's response, and the big stone in his heart was finally put down. His painstaking efforts were nothing more than to find a good backer for his son Zhou Xiliang in the future. And Qin Daoxian was the backer he saw. It seems that in response to Qin Daoxian, Zhou Muqing reciprocated, "In the future, the Guangan House Sanctuary Artifact Market will belong to your Qin family." Hearing this most powerful response, Qin Daoxian was overjoyed and said, "Thank you Uncle Zhou for taking care of you. Since you call me Uncle Zhou, why should our family speak two words?" Yes, what Uncle Zhou said is very true. The two looked at each other and laughed. Between the two talking, the Lingshu battleship moved rapidly towards the Mo family's Lingdao. Compared with the turtle speed of the Qin family Canglong, the flight speed of the Spirit Void battleship is even 3 points faster than the escape light of the Foundation establishment Cultivator. And according to Zhou Muqing, this is not the maximum flight speed of the Spirit Void battleship. If the Spirit Void battleship is flying at full speed, the speed is almost comparable to that of the Zifu Cultivator, and it can be crossed with a stick of incense from thousands of miles away, which is even more exaggerated than the speed of the previous fighter. Chapter 84. Just a few hours. Under the high-speed flight of the Lingshu battleship, the Mo family's Lingdao was faintly visible. Standing on the deck of the Spirit Void battleship, Qin Daoxian looked down, and Mojiling Island was like a disk, floating on the blue sea. Boom! The huge Spirit Void battleship headed straight towards Mojiling Island without any intention of slowing down. The air was broken open by the Spirit Void battleship, making a roaring sound. Sudden. A light curtain rose from the Majia Lingshan, protecting the entire Lingshan. Mountain Protection Array. Qin Daoxian recognized at a glance that this was a mountain protection formation based on the arrangement of the spiritual veins. Of course. The Mo family's mountain protection formation could only protect the 10-mile radius covered by the spiritual veins. Outside this range, since there was no spiritual energy to provide spiritual energy, the mountain protection formation would not be able to protect it. But even so, ordinary foundation building cultivators want to break through the mountain protection formation based on the arrangement of the first-order spiritual veins, which is basically wishful thinking. Just the next moment when the Mo family propped up the formation, an old man on the 6th floor of Qi refining flew out of the great formation. After he saw the Zhou family's spirit void battleship, he even trembled when he spoke. I don't know, what's the matter with the adults coming to my Mo family? The old man swallowed. My Mo family is the imperial family of Qianyuan Jianzong, so don't wait. Not finished. A huge voice sounded from the spirit void battleship, resounding throughout Majia Island. The cultivator of the Mo family intercepted and killed the Guang'an mansion. What? When the old man heard this, he was immediately frightened. He knew that the patriarch took away all the late-stage qi refining monks in the family, but he didn't know what the patriarch and the family's late-stage qi refining cultivators were doing. Now he knew, but he still couldn't believe it. What evidence do you have? In the face of this serious crime of looting and annihilating the family, his Mo family naturally wouldn't admit it casually. Humph. This is the evidence. Done. The image of Mo Changsheng leading the Mo family cultivators to intercept Chen's uncle and nephew appeared in the air. What else do your Mo family have to say now? Impossible, impossible, you must fabricate evidence to frame my Mo family. My Mo family will never compromise. In fact, after seeing the image in the photo-taking stone, the old man basically believed 90% that it was indeed his Mo family cultivator who killed his comrade. But this crime, they can't admit it to death. Otherwise, not only would their Mo family cultivators not be able to save their lives, but even ordinary people would be demoted to slaves, which was extremely miserable. After all, the old man flew back to the mountain protection formation, posing a posture of swearing to resist. The mayfly shakes the tree. Zhou Muqing sneered, then waved his hand. The next second, at the tip of the spirit void battleship, a sphere of thunder was faintly gathering, as if gathering energy. About 3 breaths. The spirit void battleship has gathered energy. A beam of light rushed towards the Mo family protecting mountain formation. Laugh. The Guangmu built by the mountain protection formation, when it encountered the thunder beam of the Lingshu battleship, was like the ice and snow under the scorching sun, instantly melting away. The entire mountain protection formation was directly torn apart by the beam of light. Even the top of the mountain with Mo Jialing was directly melted by the thunder beam. That's right, it's melting. Looking at it with Qin Daoxuan's eyesight, he found that there was a red liquid similar to magma in the gap where Lingshan was melted. He knew that this was the product of the melting of rocks under intense heat. Seeing Qin Daoxuan's stunned look, Zhou Muqing smiled and said, "This is the biggest role of the Lingshu battleship, cutting down mountains and breaking doors." After finishing speaking, he ordered the Zhou family cultivator in the battleship, "Go and capture all the Mo family cultivators, and kill those who stubbornly resist." "Yes, Lord Deacon." Order issued. One after another escaped light flew down from the spirit void battleship. Qin Daoxian knew that each of these escaped lights represented a Zhou family's foundation building cultivator. So many cultivators at the foundation building stage, plus a group of cultivators from the Zhou family in the late stage of qi refining, to arrest the cultivators of the Mo family whose highest level of cultivation was only the 6th level of qi refining, it was like shooting mosquitoes with a cannon. In no time. Of the dozens of monks from the Mo family, only 12 were arrested and brought back. "Lord Deacon, all the cultivators of the Mo family have been arrested. Come on, let's go down and have a look." Saying that, he looked at Qin Daoxian, "Nephew, you come too?" "Yes, Uncle Zhou." The other Zhou family cultivators were all excited when they heard this. Qin Daoxian knew what they were going to do, and quickly followed behind everyone. "Boss, this is the Mo family library." The early foundation building cultivator who had been meticulously addressing Zhou Mu as the deacon on the Lingshu battleship, actually no longer called Zhou Muqing's title, but changed it. Zhou Muqing glanced at Qin Daoxian and introduced, "He is Zhou Siyuan, my deputy, this is my nephew, Qin Daoxian." Briefly introduced them to each other. "Senior Zhou." "Don't call it that," Zhou Siyuan waved his hand and smiled, "since you are the eldest son and nephew, if you don't dislike it, just call me Big Brother Zhou. Brother Zhou. Chen Daoxian smiled and cupped his hands. Seeing this scene, Zhou Muqing smiled and said, let's go, let me see what the Mo family is hiding. Hearing this, Zhou Siyuan immediately became excited. This kind of work of looting a family and exterminating a family is not common in Guang'an Prefecture. After all, very few families would commit the big crime of looting and annihilating their families. Even if they wanted to, they would basically clean up, making it difficult for people to get caught. There are very few people caught on the spot like the Mo family. But every time the family raided and killed the family, it was a gluttonous feast for the Zhou family patrol team. Thinking of the treasures in the Mo family's treasury, Zhou Siyuan felt like a cat's claw in his heart. Compared with the Qin family, there are much more buildings on the Lingshan mountain of the Mo family. On the Lingshan mountain, various spiritual palaces and caves can be seen everywhere, and these are the residences of the monks of the Mo family. Just this moment, all these Lingshan caves were empty, leaving only patches of blood, proving that someone once existed here. Boss, here we are. Zhou Siyuan stopped and said with a smile, according to the Mo family's confession, this is where their family library is located. Zhou Muqing looked at the gate made of broken dragon stone in front of him, stretched out his palm, and stroked the stone wall of the broken dragon stone. In an instant, the entire stone wall collapsed like gravel and turned into a pile of white powder. Boss, your pure yang fire art is getting more and more profound. Okay, stop flattering, let's go in and have a look together. Who knows? Just when the three of them set foot in the Mo family library. Brush. A wind blade with a length of about zhangxiu and a width of about 3 feet attacked the crowd. Although Wind Blade is not the strongest among all first-order spells, in terms of speed, it is only slightly slower than Leifa. But the cultivator's consciousness in the later stage of foundation establishment responded quickly. I saw a spiritual shield rising up in front of the three, and the wind blade slashed on the spiritual shield, disappearing without even a single wave. This is a puppet beast. Chen Daoxian finally saw who was attacking them. It wasn't the Mo family cultivator, but a first-order high-grade leopard-shaped puppet beast. The wind blade just now was spit out from its mouth. Seeing this scene, Zhou Siyuan's face also gloomy. No wonder that Mo family cultivator was so cool just now, and directly revealed the location of the Mo family library. It turned out that he wanted to use this scorpion to plot against me. Speaking of which, he slashed towards the leopard-shaped puppet beast with a palm. It smashed it more than 10 feet away and hit the wall of the Mo family library. Did not expect. The leopard-shaped puppet beast was hit hard by this, and even stood up staggeringly. Seeing that Zhou Siyuan wanted to take another shot, Chen Daoxian stepped forward and said, Brother Zhou, I'm very interested in this puppet beast, why not let me subdue it? Hearing this, Zhou Siyuan naturally wouldn't argue with him, and made a gesture of courtesy to him. Thank you, Brother Zhou. Chen Daoxian bowed his hands, and immediately released the Qingying sword, displaying a set of wind-chasing sword art. Under the control of the wind-chasing sword art, the Qingying sword burst out at a much faster speed than the Feishua sword. For a time, the Mo family's library was filled with sword light. Soon, this leopard-shaped puppet beast was plucked off by Chen Daoxian and the spirit stone in its abdomen. Losing the spiritual stone as the power source, the puppet beast stood still on the spot. Seeing this, Chen Daoxian took a step forward, put the puppet beast in the storage bag, and then rushed to the two of them and said, Since I took the puppet beast, I will no longer participate in the treasures in the Mo family's treasury. Hear this. Zhou Siyuan, who was originally slightly dissatisfied with Chen Daoxian, suddenly fell in love with him. Brother Chen, how does this make it possible to enter Baoshan and return empty-handed? Chen Daoxian patted the storage bag and said with a smile, without empty hands, isn't this already a harvest? This. Hearing this, Zhou Siyuan looked at Zhou Muqing. Don't be greedy, know how to advance and retreat. Seeing this scene, Zhou Mucheng looked at Qin Daoxian more and more satisfied, and he felt more and more that his investment in Qin Daoxian was right. Thinking of this, he nodded and said, "Since my nephew doesn't want to fight with you, then you should share this treasure house of the Mo family with your brothers." "Thank you, boss." Zhou Siyuan immediately smiled when he heard this. He didn't know anything else, but he could still hear clearly there were more than 30,000 spirit stones in the Mo family's library. There are more than 30,000 spirit stones. With his relationship with Zhou Mucheng, he can at least get more than 3,000 spirit stones, which is also a big gain for the monks in the early stage of foundation building. Think of this. He became more and more fond of Qin Daoxian. Chapter 85. Watching the Zhou family cultivator move boxes of spiritual stones out of the Mo family library. There was no wavering in Qin Daoxian's eyes. Compared with the magical instrument market in Sangxiafang City that his Qin family had harvested, although this batch of goods was quite large, Qin Daoxian did not take it seriously. But the foundation building cultivators of the Zhou family were different from the qi refining cultivators. Although they are children of the Zhou family, there are a large number of Zhou family cultivators, and the clan rules are strict. Generally speaking, in addition to getting a fixed annual salary for their functions in the patrol team, they can only enjoy various hidden benefits of the family. In terms of cultivation resources, the ordinary disciples of the Zhou family are really not as lavish as the cultivators of the Qin family. At least ordinary Zhou family cultivators can't do the supply of medicinal pills and spiritual rice to assist cultivation. According to Zhou Mucheng, the monks in the qi refining period of the patrol team have an annual salary of only 500 spirit stones. In the eyes of a loose cultivator, this amount of money is naturally a huge sum of money, but for the children of the Zhou family, it is a drop in the bucket, and it is not enough to buy spiritual pills to assist cultivation all year round. Zhou Mucheng usually gives his son Zhou Xiliang more pocket money than this. The annual salary of the monks in the foundation building stage is much higher, but it is only twice as high as that of the children in the later stage of qi refining, with only 1,000 spiritual stones. Of course, the foundation building period here refers to the initial stage of foundation building. Like Zhou Mucheng, a deacon in the late stage of foundation building, who is in charge of a spirit worship, has a much higher annual salary, usually more than 5,000 spirit stones. In other words, the 5 second-order spiritual beads that the Qin family had bribed to Zhou Mucheng before were roughly equivalent to his annual salary for 1 year. This is also the reason why Zhou Mucheng said that Qin Xianhe was generous. As you can imagine, the Zhou family cultivator was so excited when he saw more than 30,000 spirit stones in the Mo family library. Because according to the unspoken rules of Wan Xinghai, a small family like the Mo family was raided and wiped out. After reporting to Qianyuan Jianzong, the above usually only verified whether the Mo family's crime was true. The floating wealth obtained by raiding the home is usually owned by the Zhou family patrol team, and Qianyuan Jianzong generally does not confiscate it. This is also the reason why the Zhou family cultivator is so excited. With their understanding of Zhou Mucheng's temperament, each of them can get a lot of spirit stones. Even the lowest-level qi refining cultivator can at least harvest more than 100 spirit stones, which is worth their monthly salary. How can they be unhappy? Leaving a group of patrol monks to deal with the Mo family mortals. The rest, including Qin Daoxian, returned to the Spirit Void battleship. Back to the Spirit Void battleship. Zhou Mucheng looked at Qin Daoxian and asked, "Nephew, are you going back to Shuanghu Island or Guang'an House?" Indulge for a moment. Qin Daoxian cupped his hands and said, "Please, Uncle Zhou, send me to Guang'an Mansion. It's not troublesome, we just have to go back to rest." Before Zhou Mucheng could speak, Zhou Siyuan on the side smiled and said, "Brother Qin, when we go back this time, we must have a good drink." Qin Daoxian looked at Zhou Mucheng and nodded with a smile, "Okay." Let's not get drunk when the time comes. Ha ha ha. Well, don't get drunk, in the laughter of the crowd. The Spirit Void battleship was speeding towards Gwangwon Mansion. The flying speed of the Spirit Void battleship is astonishing. The distance the Soryu would take more than a month to sail. It took only a few hours for the Lingshu battleship to arrive at Gwangwon House. Just when everyone rushed to Gwangwon House, a voice came from the Lingshu battleship. Look, is that a frontline transport ship? Hearing this, Zhou Muqing's face suddenly changed, and he was overjoyed. He walked to the deck and looked in the direction of the Zhou family chi cultivator's finger. Zhou Muqing is a cultivator in the late stage of foundation building, and his eyesight is much stronger than that of cultivator in the chi refining stage. He saw that there was a small black spot on the horizon, and it was flying towards Gwangwon Mansion quickly. Looking at its speed, although it is not comparable to the Spirit Void battleship, it is not much slower. Zhou Muqing, who served in Zenangwan, recognized at a glance that it was the transport ship that returned from the front line. Seeing this, Zhou Muqing said with joy on his face, "Today is really a double happiness. We just made a fortune when we encountered the return of the frontline transport ship." Oh! Hearing this, the crowd burst into cheers. Unsure of the reason, Chen Daoxian couldn't help looking at Zhou Siyuan beside him and asked, "Brother Zhou, does this frontline transport ship refer to the ship that transports supplies on the battlefield of Izumo?" "Right." Zhou Siyuan nodded and said excitedly, "Every few years, transport ships from the front line will come to each prefecture in Sangzhou to transport all kinds of materials seized on the front line to each prefecture. Hear this." Chen Daoxian probably remembered that when he went to the Gwangwon Prefecture's slave market to buy female slaves, the slave trader said about transporting female slaves from the front line. Come to think of it, it is this kind of transport ship that transports it. Hearing the two talking, Zhou Muqing sighed. If Jinan Pass was still there, why would it be necessary to transport supplies every few years? In the Gwangwon Prefecture, there would be frontline transport ships every year, but it's a pity. Zhou Muqing shook his head. Hear this. The excitement of the crowd gradually subsided. The fall of Zenangwan brought the Sangzhou cultivators not only the simple death and injury of millions of cultivators, but also the incalculable loss of profits. In Izumo, Qianyuan Jianzong built a total of 7 huge immortal cities. Zenangwan Xiancheng is one of them. Around these 7 immortal cities, Qianyuan Jianzong built a complete defense system. Every immortal city will radiate the land of several states of the Cloud Country, and these territories are the basic discs for the Wanxinghai monks to plunder the resources of the Cloud Country. Sangzhou and Wanxinghai and several surrounding prefectures are supported by resources from several prefectures near Xiancheng in Zenangwan. Usually, most of these resources will be transported to the back of Wanxinghai after being selected by the frontline monks. It is by relying on the strategy of fighting to support the war, Wanxinghai cultivator can continue to grow in just 400 years. Especially Wan Xinghai's loose cultivator. 400 years ago, Shenjuezhen was in a period of chaos in the Sea of Stars. There are almost no high-level cultivators in the loose cultivators, and Jinjue cultivators such as Shenjue Zhenren are very rare in the stragglers. Almost all the high-ranking monks were born in a large family and the Qianyuan sword sect. And by virtue of the 400 years of war between Wanxinghai and Izumo, a large number of famous high-level monks were born in the loose cultivation. Not to mention the Jindan cultivators, even the nascent soul cultivators, there are quite a few people out there. In terms of momentum, he was even gradually able to compete with the family monks. Later, the major immortals also realized that this is not the way to go, and they all put their children into the Izumo battlefield to experience and earn resources. Otherwise, in the early days of Wan Xinghai's attack on Izumo, the children of the big family would not be willing to go to the battlefield of Izumo. Because the big family has no shortage of cultivation resources, there is no need to let the clansmen die on the battlefield. As a result, after they saw the rise of the loose cultivator group, they all panicked, and they couldn't wait to send their tribesmen to the battlefield. and Zhenangguan fell. It is equivalent to Zhangzhou and several surrounding states, losing the basic disk in Izumo. As such, if the Zhangzhou cultivator wanted to go to the battlefield of Izumo, he even had to go to another state to serve. Not to mention whether Zhangzhou cultivators will suffer discrimination and humiliation if they go to serve in other states. Just saying that it is impossible for other states to share the resources that support their own state with Zhangzhou makes it unacceptable for countless Zhangzhou cultivators. But even if it is unacceptable, it is an indisputable fact that Zhangzhou has lost Zhenangguan Xiancheng. As a land-losing state, Zhangzhou has been cutting resource supply for more than 50 years. The frontline transport ships of Guang'an Prefecture have also changed from once a year to once every few years. Chapter 86. Under the Spirit of the Virtual Worship. Return to Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture. Along the way, all the monks Chen Daoxian saw had cheering expressions on their faces. Open the door of Hongyin Feijian store. Chen Daoxian finally breathed a sigh of relief. Regarding the frontline transport ship, he learned a lot from Zhou Mucheng and the others. To sum up, if possible, the Qin family had better raise a lot of spirit stones this year. Because after a year, Zhou's auction house is going to hold a grand auction. At that time, not only will a large number of frontline resources appear in the auction house, but the Zhou family will also come up with a lot of treasured resources to auction. Time of year. It is to raise spirit stones for powerful families in Guang'an Prefecture, as well as the publicity time of Zhou's auction house. A year is enough to make almost every cultivator in Guang'an House know about this grand auction. When I heard Zhou Muqing's words, Chen Daoxian thought of the main venue he saw when he went to Zhou's auction house. It's just that the main venue was closed at that time. It is estimated that if this auction is going to be held, it should be in that main venue. Chen Daoxian still has some confidence in raising spirit stones. Not to mention the transactions with the mermen for more than a year, the Qin family's treasury was filled with a large number of precious spirit minerals and water spirit beads. It is said that this time, winning the magical instrument market in Sangxiafang City, Guang'an Prefecture, brought a hen that lays golden eggs to the Qin family. And the market for magical instruments in Sangxiafang City is very broad. Small families and loose cultivators like the Mo family have not fully developed it at all. Chen Daoxian believes that with the continuous improvement of the production capacity of the Qinjia Feijian factory, the benefits brought to the Qin family by the market of scattered cultivation instruments will also become larger and larger. In the end, it was like the Yang family's boat trip. The Yang family's boat shop almost monopolized the boat market in Guang'an Prefecture. In terms of benefits, it was much larger than the market for magic instruments in a mere cultivator city. Because in the Wangxinghai, a loose cultivator can have no magical tools, but absolutely cannot have no ships. After all, magic tools are only things that enhance strength, while ships are tools for travel, which are absolutely indispensable. Otherwise, a monk without a boat would be almost impossible to move in the Wangxinghai. After all, the infuriating qi of the cultivators during the qi refining period is not yet sufficient to support them in wanton galloping in the vast sea of Wanxinghai. Wandered around the store. Chen Daoxian thought of another thing. Buy Lingmi for the shark people. Speaking of this, Chen Daoxian has dragged on for more than a year. It's just that the Qin family had neither strength nor background before, so they didn't want to be too high profile. After all, the spiritual rice required by the merman is not a small amount. It's different now. The Qin family has Zhou Mucheng as a backer, not to mention walking sideways in Guang'an Mansion. Basically no one dares to take the initiative to trouble the Qin family. You must know that Zhou Mucheng is not only a late foundation building cultivator, but also holds a spirit void battleship in his hand. Even in the Zhou family where there were many foundation establishment cultivators, Zhou Mucheng was not a dispensable little character. Think of this. Chen Daoxian walked out of the Hongyin Feijian store and walked straight towards Yang's boat. The store of Yang's shipping line is located in the core business district. Chen Daoxian rode on the cloud-treading beast car, hurriedly hurried, and arrived at Yang's boat line more than an hour later. Enter Yang's ship line. The one who received him was still the shopkeeper Yang who sold him the slave ship last time. Fellow Daoist Yang, I haven't seen you for over a year, business is booming recently. The two sides sat down, and after serving tea, Chen Daoxian greeted with a smile. It can't compare to the booming business of your Chen family's magic weapon shop, Yang Jie said politely. I've heard recently that your Chen family has robbed the Mo family of their magical instrument business. Hearing this, Chen Daoxian calmly took a sip of tea without saying much. The fact that the Mo family was raided and exterminated has not been publicized yet. It is estimated that the next time Chen Daoxian comes to Guang'an Mansion, this incident will be known to everyone. At that time, it was also when the Chen family became famous. The two made a few words of courtesy. Chen Daoxian put down the teacup in his hand and said, I came to find friend Yang Dao this time to buy a cargo ship. Oh. Hearing that there was business coming, Yang Jai's already rosy face became even more rosy. I wonder what type of cargo ship Chen Daoyu needs. My Chen family needs a cargo ship specially used to transport Lingmi. Lingmi? Yang Jai's face changed slightly, and he said tentatively, will your Chen family also get involved in the Lingmi business? Do you need to ship it by cargo ship? Hearing this, Chen Daoxian smiled and did not speak. Look at my mouth, Meng Lang has forgotten the rules. Ha, fellow Daoist Chen, don't mind. After a ha, Yang Jie continued, Lingmi transport ships are very common in Guang'an Prefecture. Many small families plant spiritual fields and sell spiritual rice to big families, and they will use this kind of cargo ship for shipment. Compared with the cargo ships that transport ordinary grain and ore, the Lingmi transport ship has a special cabin to ensure that the spirituality of Lingmi is not lost, so the price is slightly higher. Of course, no matter how high the price is, it will not be higher than the slave ship, so please rest assured. I don't know how your Lingmi transport ships are sold. Different models have different prices. The lowest model is 550 spirit stones. Yang Jie said with a smile. Chen Daoxian nodded, this price is much cheaper than the slave ship. What are the specific models? Our Yang's shipping line has 3 types of Lingmi transport ships, Qianshe, Wanshe, and 100,000 She. Qianshe Lingmi sounds like a lot, but in fact there are not many. Lingmi is completely different from ordinary food. Take the most widely planted corn crystal rice in Guang'an Prefecture. This kind of spiritual rice is huge and full of texture. Each one is the size of half a baby's fist and weighs half a caddy. Except for monks, ordinary people have no luck at all. Converted to 1,000 stone corn, it is 120,000 caddies. According to the market price of Guang'an Prefecture, about 5 spirit stones are needed for 100 caddies of corn crystal. 120,000 caddies of corn crystal rice can be purchased for 6,000 spirit stones. That is to say, even the smallest Lingmi transport ship can pull 6,000 spiritual stones. The largest model is the Lingmi that can pull 600,000 Lingshe in one boat. But that kind of cargo ships are exclusively for big families. For example, the Zhou family has hundreds of thousands of monks. Even if each monk consumes 5 kilograms of spiritual rice every day, the daily consumption of spiritual rice is huge. In fact, on average, the Zhou family cultivators consume more than 5 kilograms of spiritual rice per person per day. It may not be enough to double the real data. This point, Chen Daoxian, who practiced dragon python swallowing heaven, could not be more clear. If a 1,000-stone cargo ship was used to transport Lingmi, it would not even be enough to plug the gap between the teeth of the Zhou family cultivator. The Yang family had far fewer cultivators than the Zhou family, but there were also hundreds of thousands of cultivators. It also needs to consume a lot of Lingmi every day. Therefore, only a cargo ship of 100,000 stone can barely meet the needs of these big clans. Chen Daoxian looked at the expectant look on the other's face and smiled. Naturally, it is not a 100,000 stone model. Our Chen family needs a 10,000 stone Lingmi transport ship. The 10,000 stone type Lingmi transport ship can transport Lingmi worth 60,000 Lingshi at a time. Although it is still not enough for the mere people to eat, it is enough to solve the other party's urgent needs. As for the larger 100,000 Shirling rice transport ship, Chen Daoxian simply didn't buy it because he was worried about attracting attention. After buying the Lingmi transport ship, he bought a full 5,000 stone Lingmi from the Zhou family. After taking time to gather with Zhou Siyuan and others, Chen Daoxian took half the cargo and sailed towards Shuanghu Island. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.